The year is 740 CE and the sun is a heavy bruised plum sinking behind the colossal western walls of Chang'an, the heartbeat of the Tang Dynasty. Outside, the Silk Road hums with the fading echoes of 1,000 camel bells, and the scent of grilled mutton and fermented rice wine wafts through the bustling avenues of the great city. But here, tucked away in a quiet residential ward, the chaos of the world begins to dissolve into the blue shadows of twilight. You are standing at the threshold of a sanctuary. Forget the noise of the canals, forget the shouting of the silk merchants and the complex maneuvers of the imperial court. Tonight, your entire universe narrows down to the width of a single wooden desk and the depth of an ink-black stone well. The air is cooling rapidly as evening takes hold. A soft breeze carries the faint scent of roasted chestnuts and the distant rhythmic chanting from a nearby pagoda. But as you step into your studio, those external distractions are replaced by something much older and more grounded. It is the sharp, earthy, and slightly sweet perfume of pine soot. This is not merely a room, it is a transition point. It is the bridge between the exhaustion of a day spent in service and the infinite, quiet possibilities of the night. You are a poet, a dreamer, a scholar of the high Tang, and before a single character can be brushed onto paper, before a single thought can be immortalized, there is the ritual, the slow, rhythmic, and deeply hypnotic dance of the inkstone. If you have ever felt the weight of a busy world pressing against your temples, stay here, close your eyes and listen to the rustle of the bamboo grove just outside your window. The stalks knock against each other like hollow bones, whispering secrets of the wind. Tonight we aren't just writing history, we are grinding it into existence, one circular motion at a time. The studio is a masterclass in simplicity. Constructed from dark cedar and pale polished bamboo, it breathes with the season. In the corner, a small bronze brazier glows with the remains of a charcoal fire, casting flickering amber light across the woven floor mats. You sit, the floor is firm beneath you, providing a sense of stability that the shifting political tides of the capital lack. To your left, a window framed in delicate latticework is open just a crack. Through it, the bamboo stands like a silent guard, their leaves silvered by the rising moon. In 740 CE, Chang'an is a city of over 1 million souls, yet in this room you are the only soul that matters. On your desk lies the 4 treasures of the study, the pillars of your existence. There is the brush, its hairs of wolf or rabbit dry and pointed, waiting for the spark of life. There is the paper, a roll of hand-pressed Chang'an paper, creamy and absorbent, smelling faintly of mulberry bark. There is the ink stick, a dense black cylinder decorated with a faded gold dragon, crafted from the concentrated soot of ancient pines. And finally there is the inkstone, a heavy slab of duanxi stone, cool to the touch, its surface as smooth as a mirror, but possessing a hidden microscopic grit that can transform solid carbon into fluid thought. Your hands move with a practiced, effortless ease. There is no rush here. In this golden age, time is measured not by the ticking of a clock, but by the burning of a single incense coil or the steady, silent movement of the stars across the sky. To rush the ink is to ruin the poem. To rush the preparation is to forfeit the soul of the work. You pick up a small ceramic water dropper, shaped like a crouching toad, glazed in a pale seafoam celadon green. You tilt it over the circular depression of the inkstone. Drip. The sound is disproportionately loud in the profound silence of the room. A single bead of water lands on the dark stone. Drip, drip, 3 drops. That is all it takes to begin the alchemy. The water sits there, clear and innocent, reflecting the flickering light of the single oil lamp on your desk like a fallen star trapped on a mountain of black basalt. You reach for the ink stick. It feels surprisingly heavy for its size, a concentrated weight of history. You hold it vertically, your grip firm but relaxed, your thumb resting on the golden dragon. As you bring the tip of the stick down to meet the water on the stone, the real journey begins. This is the moment where the physical world starts to fade, and the world of the mind begins to sharpen into a singular focus. The first contact is silent. The dry soot meets the water, and for a split second there is a ghost of resistance. But then You begin the motion, the circle, clockwise, slow, deliberate. The stone is toothed, though it feels smooth to your finger. Those tiny invisible peaks on the stone's surface are beginning to shave microscopic particles of soot from the stick, swirling them into the water. Shh, shh, shh. The sound of the grinding begins, a dry, rhythmic rasp that vibrates through your fingers, up your forearm, and settles directly into the center of your chest. It is the pulse of the Tang scholar. It is the sound of the void being filled. With every rotation, the water darkens. It turns from clear to a pale grey, then to a smoky charcoal, and finally to a deep, lustrous, infinite black. You are not just making ink, you are clearing the clutter of the day, grinding away the noise of the city until only the silence and the ink remain. The rhythmic motion of your hand continues, a steady orbit that mimics the turning of the celestial spheres above the curved roofs of Chang'an. As the ink stick travels across the surface of the Duanxi stone, you feel the resistance change. What began as a dry, scratching friction has transformed into a silky, viscous glide. The water has surrendered its transparency, embracing the ancient carbon of the pine soot. This transformation is not merely chemical, it is spiritual. In the philosophy of the brush, the ink you are creating is alive. It carries the essence of the mountains where the pines once grew, and the spirit of the fire that consumed them to create this soot. You lean forward slightly, the flickering lamplight catching the sheen of the growing pool of darkness. The smell is intensifying now, a deep, resinous aroma that fills your lungs and grounds your wandering thoughts. It is the scent of concentration. Outside, the bamboo grove responds to a sudden gust of wind. The leaves hiss like 1,000 silk robes brushing against a stone floor. In 740 CE, the Tang Empire is at its absolute zenith, a sprawling tapestry of jade, gold, and poetry. Yet the most important thing in existence right now is the consistency of this liquid. You pause for a heartbeat, lifting the ink stick. A single trail of black fluid clings to the stone, thick enough to hold its shape, but fluid enough to flow. It isn't ready yet. It needs more depth, more body. You add one more drop of water from the celadon toad, and the ritual resumes. Your shoulder is relaxed, your breathing has slowed to match the pace of your hand. You are no longer a person grinding ink, you are the motion itself. The boundaries between your skin, the wood of the desk, and the stone of the well are blurring. This is the meditative state sought by the masters, the wu wei or effortless action. The darkness of the ink is deceptive. Within that blackness lies every color of the world waiting to be released by the brush. Depending on how much water you later add to your brush, this ink will express the pale mist of the morning mountains, the charcoal shadows of a winter forest, or the obsidian depths of a lover's eyes. You think of the poets who came before you, grinding their ink in this very city, perhaps even on this very night in decades past. You think of Wang Wei, who captured the stillness of the hills, and Li Bai, who drank with the moon. They too sat in rooms like this, listening to the same rustle of bamboo, feeling the same slight chill of the night air on their necks. The ink connects you to them across the river of time. It is a lineage of silence and creation. The sound of the grinding has changed again. It is now a soft, wet sloshing, a low-frequency hum that seems to vibrate in the very wood of the table. The ink has reached a state of perfect suspension. It is glossy, reflecting the orange flame of your lamp like a dark mirror. You look at your hand. A small smudge of black has found its way onto your thumb. You do not wipe it away. It is a mark of your craft, a temporary tattoo of the creative process. Beyond the window, the moon has climbed higher, casting long skeletal shadows of the bamboo across the paper screens of your room. The city of Chang'an is settling into its evening slumber. The heavy iron gates of the wards have been locked for the night. The night watchman's clapper sounds in the distance, 1, 2, 3 beats, signaling the start of the third watch. But for you, the day is just beginning. The true day, the day of the mind, starts when the sun vanishes. You take a deep breath, savoring the cool, ink-laden air. The tension that had accumulated in your neck from hours of formal court etiquette, or the mundane tasks of the afternoon, has completely evaporated. The act of grinding the ink has acted as a sieve, catching the anxieties and the noise, leaving behind only the pure liquid potential of the night. You look at the blank Chang'an paper. It is a vast snowy field, waiting for the first tracks of a traveler. But you are in no rush to break that white silence. You continue the circular motion for a few more minutes, just to savor the feeling of the ink stick's weight. There is a profound luxury in this slowness. In a world that constantly demands movement and speech, the deliberate, repetitive labor of the inkstone is an act of rebellion. It is a declaration that some things cannot be hurried. Beauty, like the ink, must be coaxed out of the darkness with patience and intent. You are finally ready. The ink is thick, dark, and fragrant. The world is quiet. The poem is beginning to form, not in your mind, but in the very tips of your fingers. The ink is now a pool of liquid midnight, swirling with a luster that seems to hold the very essence of the shadows outside. As you finally set the ink stick down on its small porcelain rest, the silence of the room feels heavier, more profound. The physical labor is over, but the mental resonance of that rhythmic grinding remains, a hum in your bones that keeps you anchored to the present moment. You look at the inkstone, this piece of earth that has served you faithfully. It is stained with the history of 1,000 poems, yet it remains impartial, waiting to be used again. In 740 CE, life in the capital is a whirlwind of promotion and exile, of grand banquets and sudden silences, but the inkstone is a constant. It does not judge the quality of the verse, it only provides the medium for it to exist. You reach for your brush, the finest wolf hair tip, and feel the weight of the bamboo handle in your grip. It is light, almost like an extension of your own hand. Before dipping the brush, you pause to look out into the bamboo grove once more. The moonlight has turned the leaves into shards of silver. In the distance, the faint haunting melody of a flute drifts over the wall from a neighbor's courtyard. It is a lonely sound, one that speaks of longing and the vastness of the Tang Empire. You realize that you are part of a grand tapestry, one that stretches from the frozen northern borders to the lush southern jungles. Yet your world is currently contained within this small circle of lamplight. You dip the tip of the brush into the ink. The hairs drink deeply, darkening from a sandy brown to a sleek, wet black. You do not saturate it all at once. You stroke the brush against the edge of the stone well, removing the excess, shaping the point into a perfect lethal edge. The ink is viscous and smooth, clinging to the bristles with a tenacity that promises longevity on the paper. You bring the brush toward the Chang'an paper. The white surface seems to glow with an inner light, anticipating the first touch. Your heart rate is steady, your breath a low, even tide. In this era of the high Tang, every stroke of the brush is a reflection of your character. The way you hold the brush, the pressure you apply, the speed at which you move, it all reveals the truth of who you are. There is no hiding behind the ink. If your mind is cluttered, the lines will be jagged. If your heart is heavy, the ink will pool and bloat. But tonight, after the long meditation of the grind, your mind is as clear as a mountain spring. The smell of the pine soot is a comforting shroud, shielding you from the memories of the day's duties. You think of the characters you will form, the elegant curves, the sharp hooks, the sweeping radicals that define the language of your people. The first stroke is a simple horizontal line, the character for one. As the brush touches the paper, there is a soft, friction-filled hiss, the sound of the thirsty fibers drinking the ink. The blackness is absolute against the creamy white of the mulberry paper. The ink appears not as a liquid, but as a solid shadow carved directly out of the night. You move to the next character, your wrist fluid and light. Each movement is a dance you have practiced since childhood, yet tonight it feels entirely new. The bamboo outside rustles again, a sudden applause for the silent work being done within. You are no longer conscious of the cold air or the lateness of the hour, you are lost in the flow of the ink, the mo yun, the movement of the clouds. Every character is a step on a journey, a path through the forest of your own thoughts. As you write, the poem begins to reveal itself. It is a poem about this very moment, about the ink, the stone, and the solitude of a scholar in Chang'an. You write of the pine soot that once belonged to the wind, and the water that once belonged to the clouds, now reunited on a piece of paper to tell a story. You realize that this is why you endure the long hours of study and the pressures of the court. This quiet hour, this communion with the ink, is the only true reality. The grand palaces of the Daming complex may crumble, and the names of generals may be forgotten, but the spirit captured in a single well-placed stroke of ink has the power to endure. You feel a sense of immense gratitude for this stone, this stick of carbon, and the simple drops of water that allowed this transition to happen. The night is deep. The candle flickers and the ink flows like a dark river toward the dawn of a new realization. The poem continues to unfurl across the paper, the characters marching in elegant vertical columns like the very bamboo stalks swaying beyond your window. Each time you return the brush to the inkstone, you find the liquid has maintained its perfect consistency, a testament to the patient grinding you performed earlier. The surface of the stone well is now a dark, glossy eye, reflecting not just the lamplight, but the quiet intensity of your focus. You notice how the ink behaves differently with every slight variation of your grip. A firmer pressure yields a bold, authoritative stroke, the blackness biting deep into the grain of the Chang'an paper. A lighter touch allows the brush to skim the surface, leaving behind a silvery, translucent trail that suggests mist or the fleeting nature of a memory. This is the magic of the Tang scholar's craft, the ability to conjure an entire world from nothing more than water and soot. The air in the studio has grown colder, yet you feel a warmth radiating from your own center, a heat generated by the friction of creation. The smell of the ink has become an inseparable part of your breath, grounding you in a way that the complex philosophies of the court never could. You think of the emperor's palace, where perhaps at this very moment grand feasts are occurring under the glow of 1,000 lanterns. There the ink is used for decrees, for taxes, and for the cold business of governance. But here in the solitude of your studio, the ink is a bridge to the divine. It is a tool of liberation. You're not writing for an audience. You're writing to understand the vibration of the wind in the bamboo and the weight of the silence that settles over Chang'an at midnight. The inkstone remains your silent companion, its heavy presence on the desk providing a physical anchor to the ethereal thoughts floating through your mind. As you finish the final stanza, you lay the brush down on the porcelain mountain rest. You do not move. You watch as the wet ink loses its shimmer, sinking into the fibers of the paper to become a permanent part of the material world. The poem is finished, but the experience of the grind, the smell of the pine, and the hypnotic circle of the hand remain etched in your muscle memory. This ritual is a cycle that sustains you. Tomorrow the sun will rise over the eastern gates. The markets will roar with the sound of 1,000,000 voices, and you will return to the world of men. But you will carry the scent of this ink on your fingers, a secret reminder of the stillness you found here. This is the power of the quiet life, the realization that the most profound movements often happen in the smallest circles. If you find peace in these stories of the past, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to join us for more journeys through history. Your support helps us continue to bring these moments of ancient serenity to life. Please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. What rituals help you find your center at the end of a long day? The night is now at its deepest point. The flute in the distance has stopped playing, and even the bamboo seems to have hushed its rustling. You pick up the inkstone to begin the final task, cleaning the well. Even this act is done with reverence. To leave ink to dry and cake upon the stone would be an insult to the tool that has served you so well. You pour a small amount of fresh water into the stone, watching as the remaining blackness swirls and dissolves. As you wipe the stone dry with a soft cloth, its dark, matte surface returns to its natural state, cool and expectant. The studio is silent. The candle is a mere stub, its flame dancing on the edge of the wick. You stand, stretch your limbs, and prepare to transition from the world of the brush to the world of dreams, knowing that the ink will be waiting for you whenever the world becomes too loud. The cleaning of the stone is a quiet postscript to the night's work. As you draw the silk cloth across the duanxi surface, you feel the grain, that subtle sandpaper-like texture that is invisible to the eye but essential to the alchemy of the ink. In the dimming light, the stone looks like a piece of the night sky that has fallen to earth and been carved into a rectangular basin. You place it back in its rosewood box, sliding the lid shut with a satisfying wooden click. The ritual is complete. The cycle of creation has closed, and the studio feels different now, less like a workspace and more like a temple. The energy that was coiled so tightly during the writing process has uncurled, filling the room with a sense of profound accomplishment and rest. You look down at the poem you have created. The ink has fully dried now, losing its wet sheen and taking on a velvety, matte finish that seems to absorb the light of the dying candle. You move toward the window and push the lattice frame open a bit wider. The night air of Chang'an rushes in, sharp and invigorating. It smells of damp earth, frozen dew, and the faint sweet smoke of sandalwood drifting from the imperial altars. Above, the stars are brilliant pinpricks in a canopy of deep indigo. The Great Bear hangs low over the city walls, its celestial handle pointing toward the unseen horizons of the north. In 740 CE, the world feels vast and mysterious, yet also perfectly ordered. You realize that your small act of grinding ink is a microcosm of this cosmic order. Just as the stars rotate around the pole, your hand rotated around the stone. Just as the seasons transition from the heat of summer to the chill of autumn, your mind has transitioned from the heat of the day to the cool clarity of the night. The bamboo grove is silver and black, a study in contrast. You watch the way the thin leaves catch the moonlight, flickering like the nib of a brush. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists in the deep hours before dawn, a silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of a deeper harmony. You can hear the distant, muffled gallop of a horse on the stone-paved streets, perhaps a messenger carrying urgent news to the palace. But that world feels leagues away. Here the only news is the rustle of the wind and the slow drying of a masterpiece. You feel a deep connection to the physical materials of your life. The wood of the desk, the stone of the well, the hair of the brush. They are all gifts from the natural world, transformed by human intent into vessels for the spirit. You begin to tidy the rest of your desk. The water dropper, the little celadon toad, is emptied and wiped clean. The brushes are hung carefully on their rack, tips pointing downward so that any remaining moisture doesn't rot the wood of the handles. You handle each object with a gentle touch, acknowledging the role they played in your journey tonight. Without the stone, the soot would remain a hard, useless stick. Without the water, the soot would never flow, and without the brush, the flow would have no direction. It is a partnership of elements. You think about the day to come, the meetings with fellow officials, the drafting of formal reports, the social obligations of a man of your standing. Those tasks will require a different version of you, a version that is guarded and precise. But this version of you, the one that sits in the dark with the smell of pine soot, is the one that is truly alive. As the candle finally sputters and dies, the room is plunged into the soft monochromatic light of the moon. Your eyes adjust quickly. The world is no longer colored in ambers and browns, but in varying shades of silver and slate. You stand and walk toward your sleeping mat, your footsteps silent on the woven grass. The peace you have cultivated tonight is a shield you will carry into tomorrow. You know that no matter what the day brings, no matter the stresses of the court or the noise of the streets, the inkstone is waiting here for you. It is a portal to another realm, a place where time slows down and the only thing that matters is the steady, circular motion of the hand. You lie down, the scent of the ink still faintly clinging to your skin, a perfume of the soul that will lead you into a deep, dreamless sleep. As you settle onto your sleeping mat, the rhythmic shush-shush of the ink stick against the stone still echoes in the quiet chambers of your mind. It is a phantom sound, a soothing vibration that seems to massage your consciousness into a state of total surrender. The heaviness in your limbs is not the exhaustion of a tired body, but the grounded weight of a spirit that has found its center. In the darkness of the studio, the scroll you finished tonight sits on the desk like a silent witness. The characters you carved into the paper with liquid soot are now frozen in time, capturing a fragment of the year 740 CE that will never truly die. You think of the ink itself, how it was born from the smoke of ancient pines, and how it has now returned to a form of stillness. It is a cycle of transformation that mirrors the very nature of existence, rising from fire, turning to dust, being tempered by water, and finally becoming an expression of the heart. The bamboo grove outside has grown quiet as the wind dies down to a mere whisper. The silence is thick and velvety, wrapping around the studio like a protective shroud. You find yourself drifting in that half-light between waking and dreaming, where the boundaries of the self begin to dissolve. In this state, you can almost feel the pulse of Chang'an, the millions of lives breathing in unison, the silent watchful eyes of the stone lions at the city gates, and the steady flow of the river that feeds the canals. But your focus remains here, in this small pocket of tranquility. You realize that the act of grinding the ink was not just about the poem, it was about the preparation of the self. The stone was a whetstone for your soul, sharpening your awareness until every sensation, the texture of the air, the scent of the soot, the temperature of the brush became a profound revelation. The moonlight shifts across the floor, tracing the patterns of the woven mats. You watch the slow progression of the light, a silent clock marking the passage of the night. There is no anxiety about the morning, no dread for the responsibilities that await at the ministry. Those things belong to a different world, a world of noise and shadows. Here, in the heart of the Tang Dynasty's golden age, you have found the ultimate luxury, the freedom to be still. You think of the great calligraphers of the past, those who said that the ink contains the 5 colors of the universe. Tonight you understood what they meant. In that single well of black liquid you saw the depth of the ocean, the darkness of the forest, the shade of the mountains, the soot of the hearth, and the mystery of the void. It is all there, held in a fragile balance by the intent of the artist. Your breathing slows, becoming deep and rhythmic, synchronizing with the slow swaying of the bamboo shadows on the wall. The scent of the studio, a mixture of old wood, dried paper, and that lingering earthy ink, becomes your lullaby. It is a scent that has stayed unchanged for centuries, a constant thread through the history of your people. You feel a sense of belonging that transcends your rank or your family name. You belong to this moment, to this craft, and to the silent continuity of the scholars who seek truth in the stroke of a brush. The night is a vast open sea, and you are drifting peacefully upon it, guided by the memory of the circles you drew upon the stone. The world of 740 CE is beautiful, not because of its gold or its power, but because of these moments of quiet reflection that allow the soul to breathe. Sleepy History with Tales is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment. Its inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. The deep stillness of the night in Chang'an has a quality unlike any other. As you lie there, the world feels incredibly soft, as if the very air were made of silk. The internal rhythm you established during the grinding of the ink, that steady circular momentum, has now become an internal compass, guiding you away from the jagged edges of daily life. You think back to the moment the water first touched the stone. It was such a small thing, a few clear drops, yet it held the potential for everything that followed. It reminds you that in the grand design of the Tang Empire, it is often the smallest gestures that carry the most weight. A single word spoken in the ear of a minister, a single brush stroke on a map, or a single moment of clarity in a poet's studio can shift the course of a lifetime. But here the only course being shifted is your own internal tide, moving toward a sea of profound rest. The smell of the pine soot persists. Though it has mellowed into a faint ghost-like presence, it is a comforting scent, one that evokes images of ancient forests and the slow, patient work of the charcoal burners in the Qinling Mountains. Those mountains loom to the south of the city, vast and blue in the daylight, but at night they are a wall of shadow that guards the capital. You imagine the sap of the pines being harvested, the wood being burned in clay kilns, and the fine dust being collected to make your ink stick. Thousands of years of natural growth and human labor have converged on your desk tonight. This realization humbles you. You are not just a solitary writer, you are a participant in a vast interconnected cycle of life and craft. The ink is a physical manifestation of that connection, a dark thread that binds the mountain to the city, the past to the present, and the creator to the creation. Through the thin walls of the studio you hear the muffled sound of a distant temple bell. It is the low resonant boom of the morning watch, yet it feels as though it is coming from another dimension. The sound vibrates through the ground, a deep frequency that echoes the pulse you felt in the inkstone. It is a reminder that even in the greatest city on earth, there is a pulse that remains steady and unchanging. You think of the millions of people in Chang'an, the scholars, the soldiers, the weavers, and the foreign merchants from Persia and Sogdiana, all of them dreaming their own dreams under this same moon. Some dream of wealth, some of home, some of love. Your dream is simpler. It is the dream of the perfect stroke, the one where the hand and the heart are one, and the ink flows like blood through the veins of the paper. The shadows of the bamboo have moved further across the room, now stretching toward the corner where your inkstone rests in its box. The moonlight is beginning to pale as the very first hints of pre-dawn grey touch the eastern horizon, though the world is still firmly in the grip of the night. You feel a sense of completion. The poem you wrote tonight was not just words on paper, it was an exorcism of the day's noise and a prayer for the clarity of the future. You are ready now to let go of the day entirely. The mental images of the ink swirling in the stone well begin to blur and merge with the darkness, turning into a kaleidoscope of deep violets and obsidian blacks. You are sinking deeper into the mat, feeling the support of the earth beneath you, a solid foundation that has held the weight of dynasties. In this moment, the year 740 CE feels like a dream itself. The glory of the Tang, the bustling markets of the Western Ward, the towering pagodas and the shimmering lakes of the Serpentine Park, all of it is secondary to the feeling of the cool breeze on your face and the memory of the rhythmic shush-shush of the grind. You are a poet at rest, a scholar who has found his peace in the bottom of an ink well. The world will wake soon enough, and with it, the demands of your station and the complexities of the city, but that is a story for another sun. For now there is only the fading scent of pine, the silent bamboo, and the infinite depth of the dark creative night. As the very last traces of wakefulness begin to slip away, you find yourself drifting back to the beginning of the evening. You visualize the weight of the ink stick in your hand once more, the smooth, cool texture of the lacquered surface and the slight indentation where your thumb rested. The memory is so vivid it feels as though your hand is still moving in those slow, perfect circles. This is the beauty of a ritual practiced over a lifetime. It becomes a part of your physical being, a silent language that your muscles speak when words are no longer necessary. In the silence of the third watch, you realize that the most important lesson the inkstone taught you tonight was not about poetry, but about patience. To create something of lasting value, one must first learn to be still. One must learn to wait for the water and the soot to find their own harmony. The city of Chang'an, with its grid-like streets and its rigid social hierarchies, often feels like a cage of expectations, but in the dim light of your studio, those bars have melted away. You are no longer an official of the Tang court. You are simply a breath in the night, a witness to the slow dance of shadow and light. You think about the ink that remains on the stone, now dry and dormant. It holds the potential for 1,000 more characters, 1,000 more dreams. It is a reminder that creativity is not a finite resource to be spent, but a well that is replenished through the act of preparation. The more you grind, the more you find, the more you seek the silence, the more the silence speaks back to you. The rustle of the bamboo outside has become a gentle rhythmic breathing, matching the rise and fall of your own chest. You are floating now on a sea of dark ink, a vast and peaceful expanse where there is no north or south, no past or future. The scent of pine soot is the only anchor you have left, a thin thread of reality that connects you to the physical room. You feel a profound sense of gratitude for this night. In the busy, ambitious world of 740 CE, taking the time to grind ink by hand is an act of spiritual preservation. It is a way of saying that your time belongs to you, that your thoughts are your own, and that beauty is worth the labor of a slow, meditative hour. The poem on your desk is a map of where you have been tonight, a record of a journey taken without moving a single step from your mat. If you're enjoying this journey into the quiet corners of the past, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your engagement allows us to continue crafting these immersive historical escapes. If this story has helped you find a moment of peace today, please leave a comment below sharing your favorite historical era. We love hearing from our community of dreamers and history lovers. The light of the moon has finally moved past the window, leaving the studio in a soft uniform darkness. The transition is complete. The busy day has been ground into the stone, transformed into something beautiful, and finally released into the silence of the night. You are ready to close your eyes and let the ink-dark dreams take over, knowing that the world is in balance and your spirit is at rest. The great city of Chang'an sleeps around you, a fortress of history. But your heart is as light as the down of a brush drifting on the quiet winds of the Tang night. Sleepy history with tales combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. The threshold of sleep is like the edge of the inkstone, a place where the solid world meets the fluid realm of the subconscious. As you drift, the physical sensations of the room begin to lose their sharp edges. The wooden beams of the ceiling, hand-carved and aged to a deep mahogany, seem to expand and merge with the night sky. In your mind's eye, the ink you ground earlier becomes a vast, dark lake. It is a mirror-like surface, perfectly still, reflecting the golden age of the Tang Dynasty in its depths. You see the reflection of the Daming Palace, its soaring eaves like the wings of giant birds, and the pagoda of the wild goose reaching toward the clouds. But then, as if a single drop of water has fallen into the center of the lake, the image ripples and dissolves, returning to the pure restorative blackness of the pine soot. You find yourself thinking about the nature of the soot once more. It is the residue of fire, the ghost of a tree that once reached for the sun on a lonely mountain ridge. There is something profoundly poetic about using the remains of a fire to create a work of art. It suggests that even after the flames of our daily lives have burned out, the passions, the arguments, the frantic race for status, there remains something valuable in the ash. By adding water and movement, you breathe a second life into that ash. This is the alchemy of the scholar. You take the discarded remnants of the world and, through patience and intent, you give them a voice. The rustling bamboo outside your window is the choir that accompanies this silent resurrection. Its sound is like a soft rain on a tiled roof, a constant, soothing white noise that washes away the lingering traces of the day's fatigue. In the year 740 CE, the city of Chang'an is a marvel of engineering and order, divided into perfect squares like a colossal chessboard. But as you sink deeper into the mat, you realize that the most important grid is the one you create within yourself. The discipline of the calligraphy practice, the way you hold your spine straight, the way you regulate your breath, the way you control the flow of the ink is a form of internal architecture. It provides a structure for your soul to inhabit, a place of safety in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable. Even the emperor, in all his jade-encrusted glory, must seek this kind of internal order if he is to find peace. You feel a strange sense of kinship with every person who has ever sought refuge in a craft. Whether they are throwing a pot on a wheel, weaving a rug on a loom, or grinding ink on a stone, they are all searching for that same circular rhythm that leads back to the center of the self. The temperature in the room has reached its lowest point. That crisp, clean chill that precedes the dawn. You pull the heavy silk quilt closer to your chin, savoring the contrast between the cool air on your forehead and the warmth of the bedding. The scent of the ink on your fingertips has faded almost to nothing, leaving behind only a faint woody memory. It is the scent of a mission accomplished. You think of the scrolls stored in the cabinets against the far wall, years of thought and effort captured in black and white. Each one began exactly like the poem tonight, with a few drops of water and a slow, meditative grind. You realize that your life is not measured by the titles you hold or the gold in your purse, but by the quality of these quiet hours. The inkstone is a mirror that never lies. It reflects the true state of your heart. Now, the boundary between the studio and the dream world has completely evaporated. You are walking through a forest of bamboo that reaches up to the stars, the ground beneath your feet as smooth and dark as the Duanqi stone. The air is filled with the sound of 1,000 flutes, all playing the same low, resonant note of the temple bell. You are no longer the poet, the official, or the scholar. You are simply a point of consciousness moving in a slow, graceful circle through the heart of the night. The ink has become the night, and the night has become the ink. There is no more need for words or brushes. Everything is understood. Everything is in its proper place. In the heart of 740 CE, in the greatest city on earth, a single soul has found its way home through the simple act of grinding a stone. The dream deepens, pulling you further into the velvety embrace of the Tang night. In this subconscious landscape, the city of Chang'an transforms. The rigid stone walls of the 108 wards begin to soften, turning into translucent ink washes that bleed into one another like a painting on wet silk. You find yourself wandering through the East Market, but it is not the crowded, noisy place of the afternoon. The stalls are empty, the colourful banners are still, and the only sound is the rhythmic dripping of water from a stone fountain, the same cadence as your ceramic toad dropper. Every drop creates a ripple that expands across the stone pavement, turning the city streets into a vast liquid ink stone. You walk across this surface without sinking, your footsteps leaving no trace, for you have become as light as a dried brush. As you wander through this dream Chang'an, you see the silhouettes of ancient pines growing from the cracks in the imperial masonry. These are the ancestors of your ink stick, the noble trees of the northern ridges standing tall and silent under a sky of liquid obsidian. You realize that in the world of 740 CE, everything is interconnected. The pine tree provides the soot, the earth provides the stone, the river provides the water, and the human heart provides the spark that turns these elements into poetry. This realization brings a profound sense of harmony. You feel the weight of history, not as a burden, but as a supportive current, a river of ink that has been flowing since the time of the Yellow Emperor and will continue long after the Tang has passed into legend. You reach the banks of the Kujiang Pool, the famous serpentine lake where scholars gather to celebrate their success in the imperial examinations. In the waking world, it is a place of prestige and celebration, but in the dream, it is a place of absolute stillness. The water of the lake is not blue, but a deep, lustrous black, indistinguishable from the ink you ground earlier. You sit at the water's edge and dip your fingers into the cool liquid as you draw your hand across the surface. You are not just moving water, you are writing on the world itself. The ripples form characters that you cannot quite read, yet you understand their meaning perfectly. They speak of the impermanence of jade and the permanence of spirit. They speak of the beauty found in the slow, the quiet, and the deliberate. The rustling of the bamboo grove in the physical world translates into the dream as a soft, rhythmic chanting. It is the voice of the wind singing the praises of the void. You are reminded that the space between the brushstrokes is just as important as the ink itself. Without the white of the paper, the black of the ink has no form. Without the silence of the night, the music of the flute has no meaning. You begin to understand that the true purpose of your ritual tonight was to find that balance, to find the white space in your own life. The busy hours of your official duties are the ink, but these quiet moments in the studio are the paper that gives your existence its shape and clarity. The dream shifts again, and you're back in your studio, but you're observing yourself from above. You see the scholar on the mat, wrapped in silk, breathing the slow breath of the righteous. You see the inkstone on the desk, a dark anchor in the moonlight. You see the poem, its characters glowing with a faint internal light. From this vantage point, you see that the entire night has been a single continuous brushstroke, a movement of grace and intention that began the moment you sat down to grind the stone. There is no separation between the action and the actor. You are the ink, you are the stone, and you are the poem. This unity is the highest goal of the scholar's path, and tonight, under the watchful gaze of the 740 CE moon, you have achieved it. The world of form begins to fade entirely now, leaving only the pure rhythmic pulse of the universe, a steady vibration that carries you into the deepest, most restorative depths of sleep. The silence of the late hour has now reached a state of crystalline purity. Within the dream, you find yourself back at your desk, but the boundaries of the room have dissolved into the misty peaks of the Chang'an mountains. The bamboo grove has expanded into a vast whispering forest that stretches as far as the mind can perceive. You pick up the ink stick once more, but it no longer feels like a solid object. It feels like a piece of concentrated night, heavy with the weight of stars. As you grind it against the stone, the sound is no longer a rasp, but a deep, resonant chime that echoes through the mountain passes. This is the music of the earth itself, the grinding of tectonic plates, the slow erosion of cliffs by the rain, and the steady growth of the ancient pines. In this vision, you realize that your small ritual in Chang'an is a vibration that connects you to the very bones of the world. The ink in the well begins to glow with a soft ethereal luminescence. It is no longer just black. It contains flashes of deep indigo, emerald green, and a violet so dark it borders on the infinite. This is the living ink spoken of in the legends of the old masters, an ink that does not just sit on the paper, but breathes with the life of the universe. You dip your brush into this cosmic fluid, and as you lift it, the ink trails behind in a shimmering ribbon of light. You realize that the act of writing is not about imposing your will upon the paper, but about becoming a conduit for the hidden patterns of nature. The characters you draw are not mere symbols, they are the shapes of the wind, the flow of the water, and the strength of the mountains. You are translating the silent language of 740 CE into a form that can be touched and seen. As you move the brush, the forest around you responds. Each stroke causes the bamboo to sway in a specific rhythm, and the mist between the trees thickens or thins according to the pressure of your hand. You are orchestrating the world. Yet there is no ego in this power, only a sense of profound responsibility and peace. You understand now why the great poets of the Tang often retreated to these mountains to find their voice. The city of Chang'an is a masterpiece of human design, but these mountains are a masterpiece of the divine. By grinding your ink with such care and patience, you have brought a piece of this divine mountain stillness back into the heart of the capital. You have created a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place where the soul can be naked and unafraid. The dream begins to spiral inward, focusing back on the small circle of the inkstone. The swirling liquid becomes a vortex, pulling your consciousness into its center. You are no longer watching yourself. You are the liquid itself. You feel the coolness of the water and the gritty strength of the stone. You feel the slow, inevitable transformation from solid to fluid, from silence to expression. This is the ultimate surrender. There is no more I and no more poet and no more poem. There is only the flow. The rhythmic motion of the hand in the waking world has become the heartbeat of your dream, a steady, pulsing reassurance that all is well. The complexities of 740 CE, the shifting alliances, the economic tides, the cultural shifts all fade into insignificance compared to this singular point of unity. The final echoes of the dream forest begin to settle into a deep, wordless slumber. Your mind, once a beehive of courtly politics and poetic meter, has finally become a vast, unblemished sheet of paper. This is the stage of rest where the physical body begins its true restoration, mimicking the stillness of the inkstone when it is put away for the night. Even in this profound quiet, the essence of 740 CE remains a period of unparalleled flourishing where even the air seemed heavy with the weight of genius. You are a small but vital part of this grand clockwork, a scholar whose quiet nights of preparation fuel the brilliance of the day. The rhythmic grinding of the ink was the winding of your internal spring, and now that tension is being released in a slow, steady stream of peace. If this journey into the heart of ancient Chang'an has brought you a sense of calm, we invite you to become a permanent part of our community. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you never miss a night of historical reflection. Your likes and comments are the ink that allows us to keep writing these stories. Please share with us what period of history makes you feel most at peace. We look forward to reading your thoughts and continuing this journey together. As the moonlight begins its slow retreat from the studio floor, the room is left in that peculiar, expectant darkness that precedes the first light of dawn. The bamboo grove outside is perfectly still now, the wind having retired to the mountain passes. Within the shadows, the inkstone sits on your desk, its surface now dry and matte, holding within its grain the memory of every circle you traced. It is a silent partner resting as you rest, waiting for the next drop of water to wake it from its stony sleep. You realize that your life is a collection of these cycles, the grinding and the writing, the noise and the silence, the light and the dark. Without one, the other has no meaning. The scent of pine soot is now just a ghost on the air, a faint reminder of the mountains that stand guard over the empire. It is a grounding scent even in sleep, anchoring your dreams to the earth. You feel the strength of the Tang Dynasty not in its armies or its palaces, but in this shared tradition of beauty and discipline. Somewhere across the city, another scholar is perhaps just finishing his work, cleaning his stone as you did, feeling that same surge of quiet satisfaction. This invisible thread of shared ritual connects the thousands of studios across Chang'an, creating a network of calm in the middle of the world's busiest capital. You sink into the final, deepest layer of sleep. The images of brushes and scrolls dissolve into a soft, formless grey, like a mist rising off the Yangtze River. There is no more effort, no more thought, only the pure rhythmic rise and fall of your breath. You have ground away the day, you have captured the night, and now you belong entirely to the piece you have created. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own poems, and its own noise, but for now, the ink is still, the stone is cold, and the poet is finally truly at rest in the golden heart of Chang'an. The pre-dawn light remains thin and elusive, a mere suggestion of grey behind the paper screens, but in this liminal space, the studio feels like the center of the universe. The silence is no longer a vacuum, it is a dense, textured presence that carries the weight of history. You are suspended in the quietest hour of 740 CE, a time when the great poets of the capital say the ghosts of the ancients walk the halls of the academies. In your slumber you feel the legacy of the brush pressing against your consciousness. The ink you ground tonight was more than just pigment, it was a distillation of time. Every circular motion of your hand was a tribute to the thousands of years of civilization that led to this moment. From the oracle bones of the Shang to the bronze inscriptions of the Zhou, the path of the written word has always been paved with the steady, patient labor of the scholar. You find yourself drifting through a mental gallery of the masters who preceded you. You see the ghost of Wang Xizhi, the sage of calligraphy, whose brush moved like a dragon leaping through the clouds. You realize that his legendary fluidity was not an accident of birth, but the result of countless nights just like this. Nights spent in the company of a stone and a stick of soot, grinding away the ego until only the pure movement remained. The shush-shush of the stone is the common language of all who seek excellence. It is the sound of the world being refined. In your dream, the ink on your desk begins to flow upward, defying gravity, forming great shimmering arcs of liquid shadow that dance across the ceiling. Each arc represents a thought you had during the evening, a flicker of inspiration that has now been given physical form. The bamboo grove outside seems to sense the approaching change in the air. A single adventurous bird chirps once, a sharp silver needle piercing the fabric of the silence. It is a reminder that the world of men is about to wake, but you cling to this final pocket of tranquility. You think about the inkstone again, that heavy piece of Duanxi basalt. It has outlived the mountains it came from, in a way, because it has been transformed into an instrument of the mind. In the Tang Dynasty, we value the permanent, the jade, the bronze, the stone, because we know how fleeting the human life can be. Yet the ink we create on that stone is the most fleeting of all until it touches the paper. Once the brush strikes the xuan fibers, the temporary becomes eternal. Your poem is now part of the world's memory, a small spark of light in the vast darkness of time. You feel a sense of profound equilibrium. Your body is perfectly still, yet your mind is a river, flowing effortlessly toward the sea of the new day. The smell of the pine soot has transformed in your memory into the smell of a cold mountain morning, crisp and invigorating. You imagine the scholars of the future, perhaps 1,000 years from now, looking at the ink you laid down tonight. Will they feel the rhythm of your hand? Will they sense the quiet of this room and the rustle of this specific bamboo grove? You realize that the ink is a bridge not just between you and the ancients, but between you and the unborn generations. It is a message in a bottle cast into the ocean of history. This thought brings a final deep wave of contentment that washes over you, pulling you into a sleep so profound that even the dreams begin to fade. The room remains a sanctuary of shadow. The inkstone, the brush, and the paper are silent sentinels, guarding the peace you have won. There is no more need to strive. The work is done, the ink is set, the heart is quiet. In the grand tapestry of 740 CE, your thread is currently tucked away, hidden in the dark, waiting for the golden needle of the sun to pull it back into the light of the living. Until then, there is only the breath, the stone, and the infinite restorative dark. The deep blue of the hour before dawn begins to seep through the lattice work, casting long, ethereal fingers of light across the studio floor. Even in your deepest slumber, you are aware of the transition. The heavy, velvety darkness of midnight is giving way to a translucent, pearly mist. This is the time when the city of Chang'an exists in a state of grace, before the 108 gates are thrown open and the clamor of 1,000,000 lives floods the thoroughfares. In your mind, the circular motion of the ink grinding has slowed to a rhythmic vibration, a soft hum that resonates with the turning of the earth. You are suspended in a moment of perfect stasis, caught between the creative fire of the night and the practical duties of the coming morning. The inkstone on your desk, though cold and dry, remains the spiritual center of the room. It is a humble object, yet it possesses a gravity that pulls all your wandering thoughts into a singular focus. You reflect on the nature of the Duanxi stone, formed over eons in the dark pressure of the earth, only to be brought into the light to facilitate the birth of ideas. In 740 CE, we are surrounded by the grand and the monumental, but it is these small, intimate tools that truly define our existence. The silk of your robes may fray, the gold of your seal may dull, but the relationship between the scholar and his stone is a constant, a bedrock of identity in a shifting world. You feel a deep subconscious gratitude for the reliability of the material world, for the way the soot always yields to the water and the way the paper always welcomes the brush. Through the veil of sleep, the rustle of the bamboo grove takes on a more melodic quality. It sounds like the distant brushing of silk against silk, or the collective sigh of the city as it stirs in its sleep. You realize that the peace you have cultivated is not a fragile thing to be shattered by the morning light, but a reservoir you have filled to sustain you through the day. The act of grinding the ink was a form of storage. You were storing silence, storing intent, storing the essence of the pine and the mountain. This reservoir is what allows a poet to walk through the crowded markets of Chang'an without losing his soul. It is what allows a scholar to sit in the presence of emperors and remain unmoved by the winds of fortune. Your dream begins to dissolve into a series of abstract patterns reminiscent of the swirling ink in the well. You see the flying white of a brush stroke that has run out of ink, the stark contrast of black against the void, and the subtle gradations of grey that define the misty horizons of a landscape painting. These patterns are the grammar of your soul. You are learning to read the silence between the sounds, the space between the thoughts. The scent of the pine soot is now a mere memory, yet it remains the most potent anchor in your sensory world. It is the smell of the intellect at work, the smell of the night's victory over the chaos of the day. As the first bird calls begin to multiply, signaling the imminent arrival of the sun, you sink into one final heavy layer of rest. It is the sleep of a man who has fulfilled his purpose, who has ground his worries into the stone and left them there to be washed away. The studio remains a fortress of quiet, a time capsule of 740 CE held together by the lingering spirit of the ink. You are ready to face the world, not because you are rested, but because you are centered. The circles you drew on the stone have become a circle of protection around your heart, a boundary that no noise can penetrate. The night is almost gone, but the ink is eternal. The dawn is a slow, creeping tide of pale indigo, washing over the curved ceramic tiles of the studio roof inside. The shadows are losing their density, turning into soft charcoal blurs that cling to the corners of the room. You are resting in that exquisite moment where the dream world and the physical world overlap, a state the ancient masters called the mirror of the void. In this state, the memory of the ink grinding is no longer a sound or a movement, but a feeling of profound weightlessness. You feel as though you are a single drop of ink suspended in a vast basin of clear water, slowly expanding, unfolding, and merging with the infinite. The 7:40 CE morning is cold, but the heat of your focus from the night before still lingers in the wood of your desk and the marrow of your bones. The bamboo grove outside is no longer a wall of silver, it is beginning to reveal its true colors, a deep, vibrant jade that mirrors the vitality of the Tang Dynasty at its peak. Each stalk stands tall, resilient, and flexible, much like the characters you painted during the midnight watch. You realize in the quiet depths of your slumber that the bamboo is your teacher. It bows to the wind but never breaks. It is hollow inside, creating space for the spirit to flow. By grinding your ink with such deliberation, you were hollowing yourself out, clearing away the debris of courtly ambition and city noise to make room for the poem. The ink was the vessel, but the silence was the content. The inkstone on the desk has become a monolith in the shifting light. It appears solid and eternal, a piece of the earth's core that has witnessed the rise and fall of countless suns. You think of the microscopic particles of pine soot that are now embedded in the fibers of your Chang'an paper. They were born in fire, survived the grinding, and are now immortalized in the form of a verse. This is the ultimate destiny of the soot, to transition from the darkness of the kiln to the light of human understanding. As a scholar in Chang'an, you are the medium for this transition. You are the bridge between the raw materials of nature and the refined beauty of the civilization. This responsibility feels light now, like a silk robe draped over your shoulders, because you have found the rhythm that makes the labor effortless. A distant drum sounds from the city walls, the call for the gates of the wards to be unbolted. It is a rhythmic, low-frequency thrum that signals the return of the world of men. Soon, the streets will be filled with the clatter of carts, the scent of steaming buns, and the urgent whispers of the marketplace. But in your sanctuary, the time is still your own. You have carved out this pocket of eternity through the simple act of the circle. The shush-shush of the stone is a shield that will stay with you throughout the day. When the voices of the city become too loud, you will reach back into your mind and find that steady, dark orbit. You will smell the pine soot in the midst of the crowd and feel the cool weight of the Duanxi stone in the palm of your memory. The air in the studio begins to circulate as the temperature rises, carrying the faint, dusty scent of old books and the clean mineral breath of the inkstone. You are almost at the surface of consciousness now, hovering like a dragonfly over a pond. The rest you have achieved tonight is not merely a pause in activity, it is a renewal of the soul. You are ready to step back into the grid of Chang'an, to play your part in the grand theatre of the Tang, but you will do so as a man who knows the secret of the ink. You know that at the center of all the motion there is a stillness. At the heart of all the blackness there is a light, and at the end of every night there is the reward of the stone, a quiet, patient friend waiting to help you find your way back to yourself once more. The light in the studio has shifted from a pale lilac to a soft, diffused gold, filtering through the window screens and illuminating the dust motes that dance in the morning air. These tiny specks of light look like a golden ink wash spread across the room, mirroring the physical ink you labored over during the night. You are drifting in the final, shallowest layer of sleep, where the body begins to recognize the physical reality of the bed, the weight of the quilt, and the stillness of the air. Yet, the mental state you achieved at the inkstone, that profound, focused clarity, remains unbroken. In the year 740 CE, as the bells of the Daming Palace begin to chime in the distance, you feel a sense of triumph. You have successfully defended a small piece of your soul from the relentless march of time and the demands of the world. The bamboo grove is now fully awakened by the sun. The leaves, wet with the morning dew, sparkle like emeralds against the sky. The sound they make in the breeze has changed. It is no longer a ghostly whisper, but a crisp, rustling song of life. You realize that the bamboo and the ink are two halves of the same whole. The bamboo provides the brush handle and the inspiration of form, while the ink provides the spirit and the substance. In your mind, you see the poem you wrote, The characters are no longer just marks on paper but living things, rooted in the history of the Tang and reaching toward the future. They are the result of a night spent in meditation, a testament to the power of the slow and the steady. Your mind returns to the physical sensation of the ink stone. You imagine running your fingers over its surface one last time before the day truly begins. It would be cool, smooth, and slightly damp from the morning air. This stone is your anchor. In a city as vast as Chang'an, where millions of people are constantly moving, seeking, and striving, the stone represents the permanent. It represents the quiet center around which the wheel of your life turns. You think of the millions of words that have been ground into its surface over the years, poems of longing, official reports, letters to distant friends, and you realize that each one was a bridge. The ink is the medium through which we escape our isolation and connect with the world and with ourselves. The scent of the room is changing as the day warms. The sharp, resinous smell of pine soot is being joined by the scent of jasmine from the courtyard and the smell of fresh tea brewing in a neighbor's house. These are the scents of the living world, the world of 740 CE in all its vibrant glory. You are ready to join it, but you are not in a hurry. You savor these last few moments of stillness, letting the peace of the night settle into the very marrow of your bones. The act of grinding the ink was a ritual of purification, and you feel as though you have been washed clean by the darkness. The noise of the city, which used to feel like a weight, now feels like a distant hum, a part of the grand symphony of existence that you can observe without being overwhelmed by. As you finally prepare to open your eyes, you carry with you the image of that single well of black liquid. It is a symbol of potential, a reminder that from the simplest elements, water and soot, something beautiful and enduring can be born. You are a poet of the Tang, a keeper of the brush, and a student of the stone. The world is waiting, the sun is rising over the eastern walls of Chang'an, and your journey through the night has reached its perfect conclusion. You breathe in the morning air, exhale the last of the night's shadows, and step forward into the light, grounded by the memory of the circles you drew in the dark. The morning is no longer a promise, it is a presence. The sun has crested the distant hills of the east, sending lances of amber light through the gaps in the window lattice, painting golden bars across the mat where you lie. Your consciousness is fully awake now, yet you remain still, unwilling to break the spell of the night's tranquility. In the year 740 CE, the morning is a call to order, but you have already established an order that is far more profound. You think of the ink you ground, how it began as a solid, stubborn stick of soot, and through the simple persistence of your hand, became a fluid medium for your soul. This transformation is the core of your existence. It is the proof that anything rigid can be softened, anything dark can be made to shine, and anything stagnant can be brought to life through the power of the cycle. Looking toward your desk, the porcelain mountain where your brush rests seems to catch the light, glowing with a serene, milky whiteness. Beside it, the rosewood box containing the inkstone stands as a silent monument to the hours just past. You realize that the work of a scholar is never truly finished. It is a continuous dialogue between the self and the materials of the world. The ink may have dried on the paper, but the intention behind it is still vibrating in the air. The smell of the studio, that distinct ancient mixture of dry paper, cedar wood, and the ghost of pine soot, is more than just a scent. It is an atmosphere of intellectual safety. It is the scent of 740 CE at its most introspective. Outside, the neighborhood is coming to life. You hear the distant, melodic cry of a street vendor selling fresh congee, and the rhythmic sweep of a neighbor's broom against the stone courtyard. These sounds do not grate on your nerves. Instead, they feel like the opening notes of a grand concerto. You are no longer separate from the city. You are the city, and the city is you. The meditation of the ink grinding has expanded your boundaries until you can feel the pulse of Chang'an in your own fingertips. You think of the great canals flowing with water from the mountains, just as the water flowed into your inkstone. You think of the millions of brushes being lifted across the empire, each one a small flame of consciousness contributing to the light of the Tang. The bamboo grove is now a sea of rustling green, its leaves whispering in a language of fluid grace. You take a deep, slow breath, filling your lungs with the crisp morning air. The exhaustion that usually accompanies a long night of work is absent, replaced by a buoyant, electric energy. This is the gift of the slow grind. By not rushing the preparation, you preserved your own vitality. You didn't just make ink, you made time. You stretched the moments until they became wide enough to hold your entire heart. This is the secret that the busy officials at court will never understand, that the fastest way to reach the center is to move in a slow, deliberate circle. As you finally sit up, the silk of your sleeping robe sliding softly against the mat, you look at your hands. They are steady and strong, the hands of a craftsman who knows the value of his tools. The small smudge of ink on your thumb from the night before has faded into a faint grey shadow, a lingering mark of your journey. You are ready to face the complexities of the day, the petitions, the meetings, and the social dances of the capital. You will move through the day with the same grace and focus that you brought to the stone. The night has given you its strength, the ink has given you its voice, and the stone has given you its stillness. You stand, walk to the window, and throw it wide, welcoming the full glory of the Tang morning, a poet once again whole, centered, and profoundly at peace. The full radiance of the morning now floods the studio, yet the shadows in the corners remain deep and rich, like the ink you perfected in the moonlit hours. As you stand by the window watching the golden dust of Chang'an rise in the distance, your mind drifts back to the sensation of the inkstick's weight. It was a dense, physical manifestation of history, and though it is now tucked away in its box, you still feel its presence on your desk. This is the paradox of the scholar's life in 740 CE. We live in a world of immense, sprawling power, yet our true strength is found in these tiny, private rituals. The city outside is a machine of stone and bureaucracy, but here, the turning of an ink stick is enough to stop time. You feel a sense of profound stewardship over the silence you have cultivated. It is a rare treasure, more valuable than the silver coins circulating in the Western market. The bamboo grove continues its rhythmic dance, the stalks swaying in the morning breeze with a flexibility you strive to emulate. You realize that the act of writing was merely the final step of a long internal journey. The true poem was written in the water of the stone well, in the patience of your arm, and in the quiet alignment of your breath. In the Tang Dynasty, we are taught that the universe is a reflection of the way, and tonight, the way was a circle of black liquid. You think about the different grades of ink, the common soot used by students and the precious dragonbrain incense-scented ink reserved for the highest nobility, yet on the stone all ink is equal. It all requires the same devotion, the same steady hand, and the same willingness to wait. This realization brings a smile to your lips. In the kingdom of the mind there are no ranks, only the quality of one's focus. The studio air is now warm, and the scent of the pine soot has transformed into a dry, paper-like aroma that speaks of legacy and endurance. You look at the brushes hanging on their rack, their tips perfectly pointed and dry. They look like a row of silent soldiers ready for the next campaign into the world of ideas. You feel a deep affection for these objects. They are not merely tools, they are companions who have walked with you through the dark valleys of doubt and the high peaks of inspiration. In the year 740 CE, as the empire reaches its zenith, you understand that its greatness is not just in its borders, but in the millions of such quiet moments happening in small rooms across the land. It is the collective stillness of its scholars that provides the foundation for its outward splendor. You turn away from the window and approach your desk one last time before leaving for your daily duties. You touch the lid of the inkstone box, feeling the cool, polished wood. Tomorrow night you will return. You will take the ceramic toad, pour the drops of water, and begin the circle again. This continuity is what gives your life its meaning. It is a thread that connects the day to the night, the work to the dream, and the man to the poet. You feel a surge of gratitude for the stability of this routine. In a world of shifting political winds and the unpredictable whims of the court, the inkstone is the one thing that never changes. It asks only for your time and your presence, and in return, it gives you the world. The morning has matured into a bright, confident yellow, warming the cedar walls of your studio and making the silk hangings shimmer like the surface of a pond. You are fully dressed now, your official robes heavy and formal, but beneath the layers of silk, your body retains the fluid ease of the midnight scholar. You linger for a moment at the door, reluctant to break the seal of this private world. In 740 CE, the city of Chang'an is a place of masks, of polite smiles, rigid protocols, and carefully chosen words. But in this room, during the hours of the grind, there were no masks. There was only the honest resistance of the stone and the gradual surrender of the ink. You realize that the strength you carry into the streets today is not derived from your rank or your lineage, but from the integrity of that circle you drew in the dark. Your eyes drift one last time to the inkstone's resting place. Even behind its rosewood lid, the stone seems to radiate a quiet, grounding energy. It is the heart of the studio, a dark sun around which your creative life orbits. You think of how many years it took for that stone to be formed in the earth, and how many years it took for you to learn the exact pressure needed to produce the perfect shade of black. There is a profound beauty in this slow convergence of geological time and human life. In a city that prides itself on the speed of its horses and the height of its pagodas, the inkstone remains a monument to the small and the slow. It teaches you that the most enduring things are not built with shouting and haste, but with silence and repetition. The bamboo grove is a flurry of activity now, filled with the chatter of sparrows and the rustling of small wind currents. It is no longer the meditative wall of shadow it was at midnight, but a vibrant, living barrier between your peace and the world's noise. You find that you can listen to the birds and the distant sounds of the city without losing the internal rhythm of the grind. The shush-shush sound has become a permanent layer of your consciousness, a rhythmic anchor that keeps you from being swept away by the currents of the day. You are a poet of the Tang, but more than that, you are a master of the transition. You have learned how to bridge the gap between the void of the mind and the reality of the page, and that knowledge makes you invincible in the face of the day's trivialities. As you reach for the door handle, you catch the faint, lingering scent of the pine soot on your sleeves. It is a subtle, smoky perfume that marks you as a person of the brush. In the markets and the ministry, others might smell of expensive musk or sandalwood, but your scent is the smell of the forest and the fire. It is a reminder of where you spent your night and what you achieved there. You feel a deep, quiet joy in this secret identity. Let the world see the official in his fine robes. You know that you are the dreamer who sat with the stone, the one who found the universe in a few drops of water. The night's labor has left you not depleted, but overflowing with a calm, steady light. The world of 740 CE is waiting for you beyond the threshold. The great avenues are calling, the imperial business is unfolding, and the history of the Tang is being written in every footstep. But as you step out into the sunlight, you move with a different weight. You are grounded by the stone fluid like the ink, and as resilient as the bamboo. You carry the stillness of the studio with you like a hidden treasure, knowing that no matter how loud the day becomes, the evening will return. The circle will begin again, the water will fall, and you will find your way back to the heart of the silence once more. The sun is warm on your face, the breeze is in the trees, and for a scholar in Chang'an, all is exactly as it should be. The heavy wooden door of the studio creaks softly as you pull it shut, the click of the latch sounding like a definitive period at the end of a long, beautifully constructed sentence. You stand on the veranda for a fleeting second, the morning air of 740 CE hitting your face with a crisp, revitalizing chill. The transition is complete. The intimacy of the ink-stained desk is now behind a wall of timber, yet the mental architecture you built during those hours of grinding remains standing. You feel taller, your spine aligned like the straightest stalk of bamboo in your grove. Every step you take down the stone path feels intentional, a physical extension of the precision you applied to your calligraphy. The garden is waking up around you. The dew on the peonies catches the sunlight, looking like liquid pearls that might, if touched, dissolve into the very same clarity you found in your water dropper. As you walk toward the outer gate of your estate, the distant roar of Chang'an begins to resolve into individual sounds, the rhythmic thud of a blacksmith's hammer, the low lowing of oxen pulling carts of charcoal, and the high-pitched banter of neighbors at the well. In any other state of mind, this cacophony might feel like an intrusion, a jagged edge cutting into your peace. But today, filtered through the lens of your midnight ritual, the noise is simply another form of ink. It is the texture of life, the flying white of human existence, messy and vibrant and necessary. You realize that without the movement of the city, your stillness would have no context. The grind of the stone has taught you that resistance is not an obstacle. It is the very thing that creates substance. You reach the main thoroughfare where the scale of the Tang Dynasty reveals itself in the vastness of the avenue. Riders on elegant horses pass by, their jade ornaments tinkering, while Buddhist monks in saffron robes walk with downcast eyes, their beads clicking in a rhythm not unlike your own circular meditation. You blend into the crowd, an official among many, yet you carry a secret sanctuary within your chest. You think of the poem you left behind, the ink now fully bonded with the paper, a permanent record of a temporary soul. It is a comforting thought that while the city will eventually change, while dynasties may shift and the very walls of Chang'an might one day crumble, the essence of what you did last night is indestructible. The focused intent, the mastery of the soot, and the embrace of the silence are universal constants. The sun is higher now, warming the top of your scholar's cap. You look toward the horizon, where the great pagodas pierce the sky, and you feel a profound sense of gratitude for the year 740 CE. It is an era of immense possibility, a peak of human expression, where the stroke of a brush is valued as much as the edge of a sword. You are a participant in this greatness, not because of the power you wield, but because of the discipline you maintain. The inkstone is your teacher, reminding you that true power is quiet, that true depth is found in the dark, and that the most beautiful things in life require a slow, patient grind. As you approach the gates of the ministry, you take one last deep breath, tasting the salt, the dust, and the incense of the waking capital. The shush, shush of the stone echoes one last time in your mind, a ghostly heartbeat that keeps you steady. You are ready for the meetings, the scrolls of state, and the complexities of the day. You are ready because you have mastered the night. With a calm smile and a steady hand, you step into the bustle of the world, a poet of the Tang, forever centered by the memory of the black ink swirling in a well of stone. The morning sun has now fully claimed the city, turning the dust kicked up by passing carriages into a haze of floating gold. As you walk deeper into the heart of the capital, the grandeur of Chang'an in 740 CE unfolds in every direction. The wide avenues are lined with flowering trees, their blossoms shedding petals like snow onto the grey paving stones. To anyone passing by, you are merely a dignified figure in the robes of a scholar official, moving with the measured pace of one who understands the weight of his station. But inside, you are still breathing in the rhythm of the inkstone. The world feels vibrant and sharp, as if the midnight grinding had sharpened your own senses along with the soot. You find yourself noticing the subtle details of the world, the way the light reflects off a bronze basin, the intricate weave of a merchant's silk sash, and the precise geometry of the rooftops against the clear blue sky. The memory of the ink scent, that cool, earthy pine, clings to your consciousness, acting as a mental barrier against the rising heat and the increasing noise of the city. You pass through the gates of the imperial district, where the architecture grows even more imposing. Here the stone walls are high and the guards stand like statues, their halberds gleaming, yet even in this fortress of power you feel no tension. The discipline of the circle has taught you that true strength does not need to shout. It is the steady, quiet pressure that achieves the greatest results. You think of the documents waiting for you, reports on granaries, petitions for tax relief, and diplomatic correspondence, and you realize that each one is simply another piece of paper waiting for the truth of the brush. You will treat each task with the same reverence you gave to your poem, understanding that the small acts are what sustain the great empire. As you enter your office within the ministry, the air is cooler, smelling of old cedar and beeswax. Your assistants bow as you pass, and you acknowledge them with a slight, serene nod. On your desk sits a new inkstone, a gift from a colleague in the south, carved from a deep green jade. For a moment, you stand before it, looking at its smooth surface. It is different from the stone in your studio, more ornamental, less seasoned, but it holds the same potential. You realize that your life is a series of such stones, each one offering a chance to find clarity and purpose. The shush-shush of the night becomes a faint internal hum, a reassurance that no matter how complex the day becomes, you possess the tools to navigate it. You are a bridge between the ancient wisdom of the forest and the immediate needs of the state. Throughout the afternoon, as you sit in meetings and review the endless flow of scrolls, you find that your focus is unbreakable. While others grow weary or frustrated by the bureaucracy, you remain as calm as the surface of your water dropper. You see the patterns in the data, the subtle shifts in the political winds, and the human hearts behind the formal language of the petitions. This clarity is the direct result of your midnight vigil. By grinding away the day's residue before sleep, you allowed your mind to reset to find its true north. You are working with the efficiency of a brushstroke that has been practiced 1,000 times. There is no wasted effort, no unnecessary flourish. When the sun begins to dip toward the western horizon, casting long purple shadows across the ministry courtyards, you feel a quiet sense of satisfaction. The day's work is nearly done, and it has been a good day. You have been fair, you have been diligent, and you have remained true to the principles you refined in the silence of your studio. As you prepare to leave, you look at the jade inkstone on your desk. You have used it today, and already it feels more like a friend. The cycle is nearing its completion. Soon you will walk back through the gates, through the cooling streets of the city, and return to your own bamboo grove. The evening will arrive, the moon will rise, and the water will meet the stone once again. In the eternal rhythm of 740 CE, you have found the secret to a life well lived, a heart that is dark and deep like ink, yet clear and bright like the morning sun. The trek back to your estate as the sun begins to set is a journey through a changing palette of fire and shadow. The sky over Chang'an has turned a deep, bruised plum, slashed with streaks of vivid orange where the sun's final rays catch the high-altitude clouds. The city gates are preparing to close, and the pace of the crowds has shifted from the frantic energy of midday to a weary, rhythmic trudge. You walk against the flow of the laborers returning home, your mind already detaching from the ledgers and the courtly debates of the afternoon. The transition from official to scholar is beginning again, a shedding of the outer skin that happens with every step closer to your own walls. You feel the weight of the day's responsibilities lifting, not because they were unimportant, but because you have fulfilled them with the same integrity you bring to your calligraphy. As you enter your neighborhood, the smell of wood smoke becomes more pronounced, drifting from 1,000 kitchen fires. It is a comforting domestic scent that contrasts with the refined pine soot of your studio, yet both are born of the same element. You realize that the life of a Tang scholar is lived in this constant balance between the hearth and the heart, between the service of the emperor and the cultivation of the self. The bamboo grove at the entrance of your home greets you with a familiar dry rustle, the stalks now silhouetted against the darkening sky like a row of ancient guardians. They seem to recognize your return, their swaying motion a silent acknowledgement of the bond you share. You pause for a moment under their canopy, breathing in the cool green air and letting the last echoes of the ministry's noise fade away. Inside the house, the servants have already lit the small oil lamps, their amber flames casting flickering shadows that dance across the silk screens. You move directly toward your studio, the one room where the air always feels different, colder, stiller and pregnant with the potential of the void. You slide the door open and are met by the scent of your desk, that intoxicating mixture of dry paper, old wood, and the faint mineral ghost of the inkstone. It is as if the room has been waiting for you, holding its breath since you left this morning. You remove your heavy official cap and place it on a side table, feeling the immediate relief of the cool air against your brow. The scholar is back. The night is yours once more. You approach the desk and look down at the poem you wrote 24 hours ago. The ink is now part of the paper's soul, the black characters standing out with a sharp, undeniable permanence. They look like a map of a territory you visited in a dream. Beside the scroll, the rosewood box of the inkstone sits in the center of the desk, its polished surface reflecting the dim light of the lamp. You reach out and touch the lid, feeling the familiar grain of the wood. Your fingers trace the edges, a silent greeting to the companion that has guided you through so many nights. You feel a surge of anticipation, a quiet hunger for the meditative labor that is about to begin. The cycle of 740 CE continues, unbroken and beautiful. You take your seat on the woven mat, adjusting your robes so they fall in graceful folds around you. The silence of the room is absolute, a thick protective blanket that shuts out the rest of the world. You pick up the ceramic toad dropper, its cool weight, a familiar comfort in your palm. As you tilt it, watching the first 3 drops of water fall into the dark well of the stone, you feel a profound sense of coming home. The shush-shush of the ink stick against the basalt is about to begin, and with it the world will once again shrink to the size of a small dark circle. You are ready to grind away the day, to find the light in the soot, and to write the next line in the long, ink-dark history of your life. The first contact between the ink stick and the stone is a moment of pure sensory homecoming. As the dry soot meets the 3 drops of water, there is a subtle, biting resistance, a textured grip that vibrates up the length of your fingers and into the bones of your arm. This is the conversation beginning again. In the year 740 CE, while the rest of the empire prepares for sleep or revelry, you are engaging in the most fundamental act of creation. You begin the slow, clockwise rotation, feeling the friction transform from a harsh rasp into a smooth, buttery glide. The water quickly darkens, losing its transparency as it absorbs the ancient carbon of the pine. It is a miniature storm contained within a basalt basin, a localized gathering of the night's essence. You watch the liquid thicken, its surface developing a mirror-like sheen that reflects the flickering amber flame of your oil lamp. With every revolution of your hand, the fatigue of the ministry dissolves, the memory of the long corridors, the bowing assistants, and the heavy ledgers of grain tax begins to recede, becoming as thin and translucent as a diluted wash. You are no longer an official of the Tang. You are a rhythmic pulse, a point of concentration in a silent room. You think about the ink itself, how it is made from the breath of a dying fire. The soot was gathered from the soot hoods of kilns where thousands of pine branches were consumed. To use it is to utilize the ghost of the forest. By adding water and movement, you are performing a resurrection, turning the residue of destruction into the medium of thought. This realization brings a sense of gravity to your motion. You are not just preparing to write, you are honoring the cycle of life and death that defines the world. The sound of the grinding, the rhythmic shush-shush, has become the only reality. It is a heartbeat for the room, a sound that the bamboo outside seems to answer with its own soft rustling. You find yourself leaning into the motion, your breath sinking with the circles you draw. Inhale as the stick moves away from you, exhale as it returns. The air in the studio feels increasingly dense, as if the very atoms of the room are aligning themselves with your intent. The smell of the pine soot is now fully released, a dark, woody perfume that clears the mind of any lingering distractions. It is the scent of deep time, the smell of northern ridges and mountain mist, brought into the heart of the capital city. You pause for a moment to inspect the consistency of the ink. You lift the stick, watching a single heavy drop fall back into the well. It spreads out slowly, maintaining its shape for a heartbeat before merging with the rest. The color is perfect, a purple-black, so deep it seems to have its own internal dimension. This is the ink that can capture the flicker of a candle or the weight of a mountain. You feel a sense of readiness, a quiet excitement that hums in your chest. The paper is waiting, the brush is resting on its porcelain mountain, and the night is at its most receptive point. You have cleared the path, ground away the noise, and found the stillness at the center of the motion. As you prepare to dip the brush, you realize that this ritual is what makes you whole. In the world of 740 CE, where everything is in a state of flux, the inkstone is your anchor. It is the place where you go to find the truth of your own voice. You look at the dark pool you have created, a small ocean of potential, and you see your own reflection in its depths. You are the scholar, the poet, the guardian of the brush. With a steady hand and a clear heart, You reach for the brush, ready to turn the silence of the night into the music of the line. The journey continues, one stroke at a time, in the eternal heart of the Tang. The brush descends, the tip, made of the finest rabbit hair gathered in the peak of winter, drinks deeply from the pool of ink you have just ground. You watch as the white fibers transform, soaking up the dark liquid until the brush is heavy and pregnant with possibility. There is a specific tension in the air of 740 CE at this hour, a suspension of time where the rustle of the silk on your sleeve sounds like a distant waterfall. You hold the brush vertically, your grip firm yet light, fingers positioned with the precision of a musician about to strike a lute string. The first stroke is an act of courage. It breaks the pristine silence of the Chang'an paper, a deliberate mark of existence upon the void. As the brush touches the surface, you feel the texture of the fibers, the slight resistance of the paper's tooth as it pulls the ink from the brush. The character you form is mountain. You start with the central vertical pillar, pushing down to create a strong-rooted base, then lifting slightly to let the brush tip trail off with a sharp, spirited edge. The ink flows perfectly, neither too watery to bleed into a shapeless blur, nor too dry to leave the flying white of a dying stroke. It is a rich, lustrous black that seems to sit slightly above the paper, vibrating with the energy of the pine soot. You move to the side strokes, balancing the weight of the central peak. In your mind, you are not just drawing a symbol, you are recalling the craggy heights of the Hua Mountains, the way the granite faces catch the light, and the way the mist clings to the ravines. The ink on the paper becomes the shadow of the world, a bridge between the physical reality of the Tang and the internal landscape of your soul. As you write the next character, moon, the rhythm of the previous night's grinding returns to your muscles. Your hand moves in a fluid, semi-cursive motion, the lines connecting with a hidden logic that defies the rigid structure of official documents. This is the freedom of the scholar's night. In the ministry, your writing is a tool of governance, bound by the strictures of clerical script. But here, under the soft glow of the oil lamp, your writing is a dance. The moon hangs on the paper, its curves echoing the arc of the inkstick's path across the stone. You feel a profound sense of unity. The water from the ceramic toad, the soot from the northern pines, the hair from the mountain rabbit, and the fibers from the mulberry bark. All these disparate elements of the empire are converging here, at the tip of your brush, to create a single moment of beauty. The scent of the ink is stronger now, intensified by the moisture of the paper. It fills your senses, a grounding aroma that reminds you of your place in the long lineage of calligraphers. You think of the scholars who will follow you, who will perhaps sit in this very room a century from now, grinding ink on this same basalt stone. You are part of a continuous river of ink that flows through the heart of Chinese civilization. This thought does not make you feel small, rather it gives you a sense of immense support. You are not writing alone, you are writing with the ghosts of the masters and the hopes of the future. The ink is the blood of history, and tonight you are the heart that keeps it moving. You finish the couplet, the last stroke of the final character tapering off into a fine, elegant needle. You set the brush down on its porcelain rest and lean back, the movement causing the lamp flame to flicker and dance. The ink is still wet, reflecting the light like a row of dark jewels. You look at what you have created, not with pride, but with a quiet, humble satisfaction. The night has been captured, the silence has been given a voice. Outside, the bamboo grove is still, the city of Chang'an is asleep, and the moon is a silver sliver in the obsidian sky. You have finished your work for the night, but the ink is still speaking, its dark lines telling a story of peace, discipline, and the enduring beauty of a single well-ground circle. The ink begins to lose its wet shimmer, sinking into the fibers of the paper and becoming a permanent shadow of your intent. You sit in the absolute stillness that follows the completion of a poem, a silence so profound that you can almost hear the cooling of the stone and the settling of the dust. In this state of post-creative grace, the year 740 CE feels less like a historical epoch and more like a vast breathing organism of which you are a single vital cell. You gaze at the characters, mountain, moon, silence, flow, and realize that they are not just words, they are the anchors of your sanity in an empire that never stops moving. The blackness of the ink is a visual representation of the deep, unconditioned rest that now begins to pull at your eyelids. You have poured the day's complexities into these lines, and in doing so you have emptied yourself of the burdens of office and the anxieties of the capital. You reach out to close the rosewood box of the inkstone, but your hand lingers for a second on the basalt. It is still slightly damp, a cool and grounding touch. This stone has absorbed the heat of your palm and the rhythm of your pulse, becoming a living witness to your journey through the dark. You feel a deep, wordless kinship with the object. Tomorrow, the sun will rise over the high walls of Chang'an. The drums will signal the opening of the wards, and you will once again don the robes of the scholar official. You will navigate the corridors of power, balance the ledgers of the state, and participate in the grand, noisy theatre of the Tang. But the stone will be here, waiting in the shadows of the studio, a reminder that the center of the world is not the palace or the market, but the quiet space where the water meets the soot. The oil in the lamp is running low, the flame dipping and rising in a final rhythmic dance. It casts long, flickering shadows of the bamboo outside across your desk, making the painted characters seem to move and breathe. You realize that the night has done its work. The transformation you sought, the refinement of the self through the ritual of the grind is complete. You feel as light as a piece of silk caught in a draught, your thoughts no longer tangled in the thorns of the world but floating freely in the clear air of the spirit. The scent of the pine soot is a faint, lingering ghost on your skin, a perfume of peace that will carry you through the threshold of sleep. You rise slowly from the mat, your movements quiet so as not to disturb the sleeping house. You walk to the window and look out at the silvered landscape of your garden. The moon is high, a perfect white disk that seems to mirror the circular path of your inkstick. Under its light, the world of 740 CE is stripped of its colors and reduced to a masterwork of monochrome, a landscape painting of ink and light. You feel a sense of profound belonging. You are a part of this ink-wash world, a scholar whose life is defined by the balance of the brush and the stability of the stone. The night is a sanctuary, the ink is a bridge, and the silence is a home. As you finally extinguish the lamp, the room is plunged into a soft, velvety darkness. You find your way to your bed by the silver glow of the moon, your heart quiet and your mind clear. The shush-shush of the stone is now a lullaby, a rhythmic echo in the chambers of your memory. You close your eyes, surrendering to the deep, restorative dark, knowing that the ink is set, the poem is finished, and the circle is complete. In the heart of ancient Chang'an, under the watchful gaze of the mountains and the stars, the poet is at peace, resting in the eternal cradle of the midnight grind. The transition into sleep is not a fall, but a gentle merging with the very ink you have spent the night perfecting. In your dreams, the boundaries of the studio dissolve and you find yourself walking through a landscape made entirely of brushstrokes. The mountains are the mountain character you painted, jagged and powerful, their peaks rising into a sky of pale, washed-out grey. The rivers are the fluid, cursive lines of your calligraphy, flowing with a grace that no physical water could ever achieve. In this world of 740 CE, the spirit of the Tang is not found in the weight of its stones, but in the lightness of its ideas. You move through this dreamscape with the same effortless focus you had at the desk, understanding that the reality you inhabit during the day is merely the shadow, while this world of ink and intent is the substance. The scent of the pine soot remains with you even in the deepest reaches of your slumber. It is the thread that keeps you anchored to the physical world, a fragrant reminder of the studio waiting for you in the morning. You see the inkstone again, but now it is the size of a great lake, its dark waters still and profound. You realize that all the poems ever written, all the edicts ever signed, and all the letters ever sent have their origin in this silent, dark reservoir. To be a scholar is to be a diver in these depths, bringing up pearls of thought to the surface of the paper. This vision brings a sense of immense calm. The pressures of the ministry, the expectations of the court, and the noise of the capital are all external to this deep internal sea. They cannot touch the quiet center where the ink is born. As the earth turns and the stars shift their positions over the rooftops of Chang'an, Your body undergoes its own restoration. The muscles of your arm, which held the brush with such intensity, now go slack, absorbing the rest they have earned. The mind, which balanced the complex structures of the characters, now wanders through fields of abstract form. You are part of the great silent engine of the Empire's night. Thousands of other scholars, poets, and dreamers are sharing this space with you, their collective stillness forming a foundation of peace beneath the bustling surface of the state. You are never truly alone when you have the ink and the stone. You are part of a brotherhood of the brush that spans centuries and continents. A soft, cool breeze sneaks through a gap in the window lattice, carrying the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. It brushes against your cheek like the ghost of a silk sleeve in your dream. This breeze becomes the breath of the brush, the chi that gives life to the ink. You understand that the most important part of the poem was not the ink itself, but the white space it surrounded, the emptiness that allows the meaning to breathe. Your life, too, needs this emptiness. The hours spent in the studio are the white space around the busy lines of your official duties. Without the night, the day would be a cluttered, illegible mess. You embrace this balance, feeling the profound rightness of the cycle. The darkness of the room begins to thin ever so slightly as the very first hint of light prepares to touch the eastern horizon. You do not wake, but you shift toward the surface of consciousness, like a fish rising toward the light of a pond. The inkstone on your desk sits in the gathering grey, its task for now complete. It is a silent, faithful witness to your journey. You are resting in the heart of the golden age, a man who has found harmony in the simplest of tools. The world will soon demand your presence, but for now, there is only the rhythmic pulse of your breath, the lingering scent of the pine, and the infinite ink-dark peace of the Tang. The pre-dawn hush of 740 CE is a tactile thing, a layer of cool velvet that rests upon the world before the first spark of the sun ignites the horizon. Within your dream, the ink you ground has become a vast obsidian ocean, and you are a small boat adrift upon its surface. There is no wind, yet you move with a steady, inevitable purpose, guided by the unseen currents of the way. Every ripple in this dark sea is a line of poetry, every crest a flicker of insight. You realize that the act of grinding the ink was not merely a preparation for writing, but a rhythmic prayer that synchronized your soul with the fundamental pulse of the universe. The silence is not empty. It is pregnant with the voices of all the scholars who came before you, their collective wisdom, a gentle hum that resonates in the very marrow of your bones. You see the image of your own hand, translucent and shimmering, still moving in that eternal clockwise circle. It is a motion that transcends time. In this state, the distance between the ancient Han dynasty and your present Tang reality vanishes. You are part of a lineage of light-bearers who use the darkness of soot to illuminate the truths of the human heart. The ink is the dark mirror in which the world sees itself. As you float upon this dream ocean, you feel a profound sense of relief. The complexities of statecraft, the shifting alliances of the court, and the endless petitions of the common folk are all dissolved into this singular dark purity. They are not forgotten, but they are simplified, reduced to their essence, so that when you wake, you can address them with a heart that is unclouded and a mind that is sharp as a new blade. The bamboo grove outside your window begins to catch the very first indirect light of the coming day. The stalks, which were black silhouettes against the stars, now turn a deep metallic indigo. They are the first to sense the change, their leaves trembling with a subtle electric anticipation. In your sleep you mirror this quickening. Your breath becomes shallower, more rhythmic, as the restorative power of the deep dark begins to give way to the rising energy of the light. The scent of the pine soot, which has been your companion through the night, now seems to sharpen, turning from a heavy, comforting blanket into a crisp, invigorating call to consciousness. It is the smell of a world being born anew, of a scholar preparing to step back into the grid of history. Your dream shifts one last time, showing you the poem you wrote, but now the characters are made of living light, burning brightly against the dark silk of the night sky. They are a constellation of your own making, a guide for your soul as you navigate the challenges of the coming day. You realize that the work you do in the silence is the only work that truly lasts. The monuments of stone may weather, the empires may expand and contract, but the clarity you found at the inkstone is an internal flame that no wind can extinguish. This is the true legacy of the Tang, not just its gold or its armies, but its commitment to the refinement of the spirit through the medium of the brush. As the first bird lets out a solitary crystalline note, piercing the grey mist of the morning, you find yourself at the very edge of waking. You do not rush to open your eyes. You savor the final seconds of this perfect equilibrium. Holding on to the stillness of the stone and the fluidity of the ink, the room is emerging from the shadows, the familiar shapes of your desk, your books, and your brushes reclaiming their physical presence. You are returning from the deep, but you are bringing the treasures of the night with you. The shush-shush of the grind is now a quiet vibration in your heart, a steady drumbeat that will accompany you as you walk through the gates of the day. You are ready. The ink is dry, the vision is clear, and the world of 740 CE is waiting for the first stroke of your waking life. The pearl-grey light of dawn finally breaches the paper screens, dissolving the last lingering ghosts of the night's shadows. You open your eyes, not with the jarring shock of a sudden start, but with a smooth, incremental awakening that mirrors the way ink spreads through water. The studio is cold now, the charcoal in the brazier having long since turned to fine white ash. Yet you feel a residual warmth in your chest. You remain motionless on your mat for several heartbeats, observing the transition of the room from a sanctuary of the imagination to a functional space of the physical world. The inkstone on your desk, which had been a portal to the infinite during the moonlit hours, now sits as a solid, silent block of basalt, humble, reliable, and patient. It has performed its duty, and in doing so it has allowed you to perform yours. You rise and walk toward the desk, your footsteps soft on the woven floor. The scroll you finished lies there, the ink now completely matte, having surrendered its liquid sheen to become one with the grain of the paper. This is the alchemy of the Tang scholar, the transformation of thought into substance. You look at the characters you birthed in the dark, and they seem even more resolute in the morning light. They are no longer just your thoughts, they are objective reality. In the year 740 CE, as the first rays of the sun begin to touch the golden roofs of the Daming Palace, you realize that your small room is a microcosm of the entire empire. Just as the emperor must balance the myriad needs of the provinces, you must balance the internal forces of your own spirit. The inkstone was the tool of that calibration. The scent of the room has shifted. The heavy, resinous aroma of the pine soot has settled into a dry, intellectual fragrance, like the smell of an ancient library. You pick up the inkstone and carefully wipe its surface with a piece of damp silk, removing the last traces of the dried well. This act of cleaning is as sacred as the act of grinding. It is a gesture of respect toward the material that serves you. As you clear away the residue, you are also clearing your mind for the logistical demands of the day. The shush-shush of the night is now a memory, but its rhythm has been absorbed into your pulse. You feel a sense of profound readiness. The city outside is now fully awake, the distant clatter of hooves on stone, the shouting of guards, and the tolling of the great bells all signal the return of the social order. You walk to the window and push it open, welcoming the sharp, invigorating air. The bamboo grove is a brilliant, translucent green, each leaf trembling with the weight of a single dewdrop. These drops are like the water from your dropper, clear and full of potential, waiting for the sun to claim them. You feel a deep affinity for the bamboo. It grows straight, it remains hollow to let the wind pass through, and it survives the winter without losing its color. This is the ideal you strive for in your life as a public servant and a private poet. By grinding your ink in the silence of the night, you ensure that you remain hollow enough for the spirit to flow through you during the noise of the day. As you turn to leave the studio and begin your official morning preparations, you take one final glance at the desk. The stone is clean, the brushes are straight, and the paper is waiting for the next encounter. You carry the stillness of the midnight grind with you like a secret talisman hidden in your sleeve. The world of 740 CE is a world of immense complexity and fleeting beauty, but you move through it with the confidence of a man who knows how to create his own center. The night is over. The ink is dry, but the soul of the scholar remains fluid, balanced, and eternally at peace. The early light of 740 CE strengthens, turning the grey mists of the courtyard into a luminous haze that clings to the mossy stones. You stand at the threshold of your studio, the weight of your official silk robes feeling like a second skin, yet the lightness you cultivated in the dark remains centered in your core. The transition from the dream to the task is always a delicate one. It requires a conscious effort to keep the ink of the soul from being diluted by the salt of the day. You watch as a single sparrow lands on the edge of the stone basin outside, its sharp, quick movements a contrast to the slow, circular meditation you just concluded. The world is beginning to demand its due, a signature on a scroll, a decision on a trade route, a polite nod to a rival, but you approach these things now with the clarity of a polished mirror. As you step into the main hall of your residence, the servants move with a quiet efficiency, their shadows stretching long across the polished floors. They see the official, the master of the house, but they cannot see the black ink still coursing through your internal landscape. You realize that your secret strength lies in this invisibility. In a court where everyone strives to be seen, your power comes from the hours spent being nobody, just a hand moving against a stone. You sit for your morning meal, a simple bowl of congee and a cup of tea, and find that even the steam rising from the porcelain reminds you of the mist over the inkstone. Everything is connected. The grain that sustains your body is no different from the soot that sustains your spirit. Both are gifts of the earth refined by human patience. The sounds of the city are now a constant thrum, the heartbeat of the Tang Dynasty in its full exuberant prime. You hear the rhythmic calls of the gatekeepers and the distant melodic chanting from a nearby temple. Usually the sheer scale of Chang'an can feel overwhelming, a mountain of human ambition that threatens to crush the individual. But today, you feel as though you are standing on top of that mountain looking down. The ink grinding has given you perspective. You understand that the empire is built on these small repetitive actions, the sowing of seeds, the firing of bricks, the grinding of ink. Your role is to ensure that these actions are performed with integrity. You are a guardian of the rhythm, a steward of the balance. As you prepare to board your carriage for the journey to the imperial city, you reach into your sleeve and feel the texture of a small blank piece of paper you tucked away. It is a reminder that the story is never finished. Even as you spend the day writing the history of others, you are holding space for your own next verse. The shush shush of the stone is a song that plays beneath the noise of the streets, a subterranean river that keeps the soil of your mind fertile. You look out at the bustling crowds as the carriage moves forward, seeing the faces of merchants, soldiers, and monks, and you feel a profound sense of compassion. They are all in their own way searching for the stillness you found in the dark. The carriage rolls through the great red gates of the ministry, and the official day begins in earnest, but as you take your seat at the heavy mahogany desk and reach for the brush, you do not feel the familiar weight of duty. Instead, you feel a sense of play. The brush is light, the paper is welcoming, and the ink you use here, though ground by an assistant, is still the same substance that bridged your night and day. You are the poet official of 740 CE, a man who knows that the most important mark you will leave today is not on a government decree, but on the quiet, unwritten page of your own heart. The sun is high, the empire is vast, and the ink is forever flowing. The hours of the afternoon in the year 740 CE stretch like a length of fine unrolled silk. Inside the ministry, the sunlight has shifted to a deep, heavy ochre, illuminating the clouds of incense smoke that drift lazily toward the high, painted rafters. You sit amidst a mountain of official scrolls, yet your mind remains as cool as the basalt of your inkstone. There is a specific kind of chaos that defines the peak of a dynasty, the endless shuffling of papers, the hushed whispers of political maneuvering, and the constant rhythmic thud of official seals being pressed into red wax. To anyone else, this environment would be draining, a slow erosion of the spirit, but to you it is merely a complex composition of lines and dots. You navigate the demands of the state with a fluid, brush-like grace, letting the frustrations of others slide off you like water off a lotus leaf. You find yourself looking at the ink in the well of your office desk. It is a commercial blend, lacking the subtle, soul-stirring fragrance of the pine soot you ground by hand, yet it serves its purpose. It reminds you that the way is not found only in the perfect, isolated moments of the night, but also in the messy, public obligations of the day. You realize that the true test of the scholar is to maintain the internal shush-shush even when the world is shouting. As you dip your brush to sign a petition for a new irrigation canal in the southern provinces, you feel the connection between your private ritual and this public act. The water that sustains the farmers is the same water that allows the ink to flow. Your life is not divided. It is a single, continuous stroke of the brush, moving between the silence of the self and the service of the world. A fellow official stops by your desk, his face etched with the weariness of a man who has forgotten how to breathe. He speaks of the rumors from the frontier, the fluctuations in the price of silk, and the shifting favors of the inner court. You listen with genuine empathy, but you do not allow his anxiety to take root in your own soil. When he asks how you remain so composed amidst the mounting pressure of the season, you offer him a small, enigmatic smile. You cannot explain the inkstone to him. It is a truth that must be felt through the friction of the hand and the patience of the heart. Instead, you offer him a cup of clear tea and a moment of genuine stillness, sharing a fragment of the peace you harvested under the moon. For a heartbeat, the tension in his shoulders drops, and you see the shadow of the scholar he once was. As the shadow of the great sundial in the palace courtyard grows long and thin, the official workday begins to wind down. The scribes are packing away their brushes, and the heavy gates of the administrative quarters are being prepared for the evening lock. You feel a familiar, rhythmic anticipation beginning to thrum in your veins. The sun is sinking toward the western walls, turning the sky into a bruised tapestry of violet and gold. The day has been productive, the duties have been met, and the integrity of the Tang has been upheld in your small corner of the world. Now the call of the return begins. The movement from the many back to the one, from the noise back to the shush-shush. Walking out of the ministry, the cool evening air of Chang'an greets you like an old friend. The city is preparing for its nighttime persona. The lanterns are being lit in the wine shops of the Great Terrace, and the sound of lutes begins to drift from the upper stories of the villas. You board your carriage, your eyes closing for a moment as the rhythmic jolting of the wheels over the stone pavers becomes a prelude to the meditation to come. You are moving toward the bamboo grove, toward the cedar-scented studio, and toward the dark, waiting embrace of the stone. The cycle is turning, the light is fading, and once again the poet is returning to the source. The world of 740 CE is wide and wondrous, but tonight, your world is the size of a single drop of water falling into a well of black basalt. The carriage comes to a halt before the familiar gates of your estate, the rhythmic clatter of hooves finally silenced by the soft evening air. As you step down, the sky above Chang'an has transitioned into a deep, celestial indigo, where the first few stars begin to pierce the veil like tiny pricks of a needle on silk. The air here, away from the bustling administrative heart of the city, smells of damp earth and the subtle, peppery scent of the bamboo grove. You walk through the courtyard, feeling the transition in your very bones. The heavy, rigid mantle of the official is being shed with every step, replaced by the porous, receptive skin of the artist. The servants bow, their movements mere flickers in the periphery of your vision, for your focus is already pulling toward the small wooden structure at the edge of the garden. Your studio is no longer just a room. It is a destination, a point of arrival after a long journey through the landscape of the mundane. Pushing open the sliding door, you are greeted by the profound, familiar silence that you left behind at dawn. The room has held its breath all day, preserving the essence of your previous night's work. You do not light the lamps immediately. Instead, you sit in the gathering gloom, letting your eyes adjust to the shapes of the furniture and the ghostly pale rectangles of the paper scrolls. In the year 740 CE, darkness is not a void, but a texture. It is the color of potential. You feel the presence of the inkstone on the desk, a silent, heavy heart waiting to be revived. This moment of sitting in the dark is the bridge. It allows the residue of the ministry, the voices, the figures, the political tensions to settle like silt at the bottom of a pond. You wait until the surface of your mind is as flat and reflective as a mirror before you reach for the flint. The spark catches, and the small flame of the oil lamp blooms, casting a warm amber circle upon the desk. The light is soft, intimate, and focused, shrinking the entire universe down to the wooden surface and the tools of your craft. You look at the inkstone. It seems to have a deeper luster tonight, as if it has been absorbing the silence of the day. You pick up the ceramic toad, feeling its cool glazed belly against your palm. The water you pour into the well is a silver ribbon in the lamplight, a sacrificial offering to the god of the grind. As the first drop hits the basalt, you feel the familiar quickening in your chest. This is the true beginning of your day, the moment where the eye that serves the emperor gives way to the eye that serves the brush. The shush shush begins. It is a more resonant sound tonight, or perhaps you are simply more attuned to it. You feel the friction of the ink stick as it begins to yield its carbon soul to the water. The movement of your arm is automatic, a circular prayer that requires no conscious thought. You think about the paradox of this labor. You are destroying a solid stick of ink to create a fluid medium, yet in that destruction you are creating something that can last for 1,000 years. It is the same with the self. By grinding away the ego, the titles, and the daily roles, you find the fluid, eternal essence that lies beneath. In 740 CE, the world sees your rank. In this room, the stone sees only your sincerity. The scent of the pine soot rises, filling the air with its smoky, ancient perfume. It is a scent that travels through time, connecting you to the very foundations of the earth. You feel a sense of immense gratitude for this ritual. Without it, the life of a scholar official would be a desert of dry documents and hollow formalities. The inkstone is the oasis. It is where you go to drink, to wash away the dust of the world, and to prepare the ground for the seeds of your imagination. The liquid in the well is now thick and lustrous, a dark, swirling galaxy contained within a ring of stone. You lift the ink stick, watching the final heavy drop fall back into the pool. It is ready. You are ready. The night is young, the city is quiet, and the brush is waiting to translate the silence into a song of ink and light. The first dip of the brush into the fresh ink feels like a reunion with an old friend who speaks only in truths. As the hair of the brush swells with the dark liquid, you feel the weight shift in your fingers, a delicate gravity that signals the transition from thought to action. In the year 740 CE, the world outside may be governed by the rigid laws of the Tang Code, but here, on this stretch of silk-smooth paper, you are the architect of a different order. You begin with a single horizontal stroke, the character for one. It is the simplest mark, yet the most difficult to master, for it requires a perfect balance of beginning, middle, and end. You feel the tip of the brush dance across the surface, leaving behind a trail of midnight that seems to pulse with the rhythm of your own heartbeat. This is the moment where the shush-shush of the grinding is finally translated into the silent music of the line. The air in the studio has become heavy with the scent of the ink, a fragrance that acts as a physical barrier against the intrusions of the past day. The memory of the ministry's bustling corridors feels like a distant dream, a story told about someone else. You are now entirely consumed by the geometry of the characters. You write of the cold mountain, and as the brush moves, you can almost feel the chill of the high-altitude air and the rough texture of the ancient stones. Calligraphy is not merely writing. It is a form of shadow casting, where the black ink represents the substance of the world and the white paper represents the light of the void. You work with a quiet, fierce intensity, your breath coming in slow, measured waves that match the rising and falling of the brush. The oil lamp flickers slightly as a moth beats its wings against the paper screen, but you do not look up. Your world has narrowed to the point where the ink meets the paper. You notice the way the ink interacts with the fibers, sometimes sinking deep to create a solid, brooding black, other times skimming the surface to leave a dry stroke that hums with energy. These variations are the vocabulary of your soul. In 740 CE, a scholar is judged by his hand, for it is believed that the character of the man is revealed in the character of his writing. If the stroke is hesitant, the heart is divided. If the stroke is bold, the spirit is unified. Tonight your hand is steady, guided by the internal stillness you cultivated during the hour of the grind. As you reach the middle of the scroll, you feel a sense of profound expansion. It is as if the walls of the studio have dissolved and you are writing directly onto the fabric of the night sky. The poem you're composing is about the transience of power and the endurance of the natural world, a theme that feels particularly resonant in the heart of the empire's capital. You write of the eternal river, and the ink flows from your brush with a liquid grace that mirrors the subject. You realize that this is the true purpose of your life, to be a vessel through which the beauty of the universe can find its way into human form. The official robes you wear are merely a costume. The ink on your fingers is your true identity. The night deepens, and the silence of the garden becomes absolute. Even the bamboo has stopped its rustling, as if it too is leaning in to watch the progress of your brush. You finish the final character, a sweeping, dramatic stroke that anchors the entire composition to the page. You set the brush down and exhale, a long, slow breath that carries with it the last remnants of the day's fatigue. The ink is still wet, a dark, gleaming river of thought that will soon become a permanent landmark of your existence. You sit back watching the lamplight play across the surface of the paper, and you feel a sense of peace that is as deep and unshakable as the mountains themselves. The work is done, the night is fulfilled, and the inkstone sits in the shadows, a silent partner in the creation of a moment that will never truly end. The ink settles into the grain of the paper, losing its liquid sheen and becoming a part of the physical history of 740 CE. You sit before the finished work, your hands resting on your knees, feeling the profound stillness that follows the act of creation. The studio air is cool, carrying the faint, metallic scent of the garden's night dew mixing with the smoky residue of the pine's soot. You realize that this specific silence is the most valuable thing you own. It is a silence earned through discipline and the rhythmic friction of the stone. In the vast, sprawling architecture of Chang'an, where every building and every person serves a function for the state, this room remains a sanctuary for the purposeless beauty of the soul. You are not writing for the emperor now, nor for the records of the ministry. You are writing to reconcile the man who walks the streets with the spirit that inhabits the stars. A distant bell tolls from a temple on the edge of the district, its low, resonant frequency vibrating through the floorboards and into the soles of your feet. It is a reminder that time, even in the golden age of the Tang, is a river that only flows in one direction. Yet, as you look at the inkstone, you feel as though you have found a way to step out of that current. The stone does not age in the way humans do. It only becomes smoother, more receptive, more wise. You reach out and touch the edge of the basalt, feeling its unwavering stability. In the face of the court's intrigues and the city's noise, the stone is your compass. It teaches you that the most powerful thing in the world is not the sword or the decree, but the ability to remain centered while everything else is in motion. You begin the ritual of cleaning, a process that is just as meditative as the grinding. You use a small piece of soft silk to wipe the remaining ink from the brush, watching the black water swirl in the rinsing bowl like a miniature tempest. Each movement is deliberate, a gesture of gratitude to the tools that have allowed you to speak. You then turn to the stone, gently clearing the well of any residue. To leave the ink to dry on the stone would be a betrayal of the partnership, an act of neglect that would dull the clarity of the next night's work. As you dry the surface, the basalt regains its matte, honest texture, ready once more to receive the water and the soot. The shush is gone for now, replaced by the soft whisper of silk against stone, but the rhythm remains etched in your nervous system. The oil lamp is beginning to sputter, its fuel nearly spent. The shadows of the bamboo outside lengthen and stretch across the floor, looking like the very brushstrokes you just placed on the paper. You feel a heavy, comfortable weariness settling into your limbs, the kind of tiredness that comes from a day well spent and a night well dreamed. You stand up, your robes rustling in the quiet, and walk to the window. The moon is a perfect silver eye watching over the sleeping capital. You think of the millions of people behind the city walls, each locked in their own world of ambition, grief, or joy. For a brief moment, you feel a connection to all of them, bound together by the ink of fate that writes the story of the Tang. As you extinguish the lamp, the room is flooded with the soft blue light of the moon. You walk toward your bed, your mind empty of words but full of the feeling of the grind. Tomorrow will bring the robes of office, the petitions of the people, and the weight of the crown's expectations. But you will move through it all with a secret smile, knowing that beneath your silk sleeves your skin still carries the scent of the pine forest, and your heart still beats to the circular rhythm of the stone. The night has given you its strength, the ink has given you its voice, and the silence has given you your home. In the heart of 740 CE, the scholar sleeps grounded by the memory of the black ink and the infinite peace of the midnight circle. The transition into the deep hours of the night is marked by a subtle shift in the temperature of the studio, a creeping chill that makes the warmth of the ink-stained mat beneath you feel like a small island of life in a vast frozen sea. As you lie in the quiet, your mind begins to drift through the spaces between the characters you painted. You find yourself contemplating the nature of the soot, those microscopic particles of charred pine that have become the medium for your spirit. In the year 740 CE, the world is obsessed with the physical and the tangible, with the thickness of walls and the weight of gold, yet here you are, finding the greatest substance in the residue of smoke. It is a profound irony that the most enduring thoughts of the Tang are recorded using the most ephemeral of materials, ash and water. This realization brings a gentle smile to your lips in the darkness. You are a weaver of ghosts, a master of things that have already passed through the fire. In the dreamless state that follows, you feel your consciousness expanding beyond the walls of your estate. You become the ink flowing through the city, tracing the veins of Chang'an's grid. You are in the brush of the night watchman signing his log, in the charcoal of the street vendor's hearth, and in the dark shadows of the palace eaves where the imperial guards stand in silent vigilance. The shush-shush of your midnight ritual becomes the ambient hum of the empire itself, a constant rhythmic grinding of human ambition against the stone of reality. You realize that everyone is grinding their own ink, trying to leave a mark that won't be washed away by the rains of time. Some grind with desperation, some with greed, but you have learned to grind with love. That is the secret of the scholar, to find the beauty in the resistance, to turn the friction of life into the smoothness of art. As the pre-dawn hour approaches, the silence of the room takes on a new quality, becoming lighter and more expectant. The ink on the scroll is now fully cured, its molecules locked into the fibers of the paper in a permanent embrace. This scroll will outlive the silk you wear, the house you inhabit, and perhaps even the dynasty you serve. It is a terrifying and beautiful thought. You are a mortal man, prone to the aches of the body and the anxieties of the mind, yet through the ritual of the stone, you have touched something immortal. The 740 CE version of yourself is just one iteration of an eternal archetype, the seeker at the desk, the hand on the stick, the eye on the void. This connection to the past and the future provides a sense of profound security. You do not need to hurry, you only need to be precise. A faint silvery light begins to bleed into the sky, signaling the approach of a new day. You stir in your bed, the scent of the pine soot still clinging to your hair like a blessing from the night. You feel a strange sense of clarity, as if the darkness has scrubbed your soul clean of the previous day's distractions. The shush-shush echo is quiet now, a steady bass line that underpins your return to the world of form. You think of the inkstone sitting on your desk, cold and waiting, and you feel a surge of affection for it. It is your anchor in the storm of history, the one place where the truth is never hidden behind a mask. You are ready to face the world again, not because you seek its rewards, but because you have already found your treasure in the dark. As you finally rise to meet the first light, your movements are fluid and certain. You walk to the studio one last time before the servants arrive, looking at the scroll in the dim light of dawn. The characters seem to vibrate with a life of their own, a testament to the hour you spent in total union with the stone. You roll the paper carefully, the dry rustle sounding like the whisper of a forest. The journey of the night is over, but the ink is forever. You step out onto the veranda, breathing in the cold, fresh air of the morning, a scholar official of the Tang, renewed by the soot, centered by the circle, and ready to write the next chapter of his life upon the broad, white page of the world. The dawn of 740 CE breaks, not with a roar, but with a gradual thinning of the indigo sky into a pale, translucent jade. You stand on your veranda, watching the first light catch the dew on the bamboo leaves, turning each droplet into a momentary diamond. The physical exertion of the previous night's calligraphy has left you with a strange, buoyant energy, a lightness of the bones that the old masters spoke of. Your mind is no longer cluttered with the debris of yesterday's bureaucratic disputes. It has been filtered through the fine grit of the basalt stone. You feel like a vessel that has been scrubbed clean, ready to be filled with the new day's responsibilities. The shush-shush of the inkstick has faded into the background of your consciousness, becoming a rhythmic foundation upon which the melody of the morning begins to play. As you move through your morning ablutions, the splash of cold water against your face feels like a continuation of the liquid ritual in the studio. You observe your hands, the fingers that held the ink stick with such persistence and the brush with such delicacy, and you notice a faint, stubborn smudge of black under your thumbnail. You do not scrub it away. To you, it is a badge of honor, a small hidden fragment of the night that you will carry into the halls of power. It serves as a secret anchor, a reminder that no matter how high the stakes of the day become, your true self remains grounded in the quiet labor of the soot. You dress in your official robes of deep purple, the silk heavy and rustling, but inside you remain the scholar in the simple cotton gown, still smelling of pine smoke and mountain mist. The journey to the ministry is a blur of waking city sounds, the rhythmic thud of the drums from the drum tower, the creak of ox carts, and the chatter of early market vendors. From the window of your carriage, you watch the people of Chang'an begin their day. You see a young student hurrying along with a bundle of scrolls, and you feel a pang of kinship. You want to tell him that the secret is not in the memorization of the texts, but in the grinding of the ink, in the patience required to prepare the mind before the brush ever touches the page. You realize that your role in the government is much the same. You're not just managing grain and gold, you're grinding the ink of the empire, trying to create a smooth, consistent flow so that the lives of the people can be written with clarity and justice. Upon entering your office, you find a stack of urgent reports waiting on your desk. One concerns a border skirmish in the far west, another a flood in the Yangtze Valley. In the past, these would have triggered a spike of anxiety, a tightening in your chest. But today you look at them and see only lines that need to be balanced. You pick up your official brush and the muscle memory of the night takes over. Your movements are decisive and calm. You find solutions not by force but by finding the natural grain of the problem, much like how you found the grain of the ink stick. You're operating from a place of deep internal stillness, a place that was forged in the dark, circular path of the midnight grind. As the morning progresses, you find that your colleagues are drawn to your office. They come with their worries and their weary faces, but they find themselves lingering in the quiet atmosphere you have cultivated. You realize that the peace you found at your desk is contagious. By refining your own spirit, you are subtly refining the environment around you. The year 740 CE is a time of great splendor, but also great pressure, and you have become a small, steady light in the middle of the storm. You don't say much, but your presence is like the inkstone itself, solid, reliable, and capable of turning friction into something useful. The sun climbs higher, the shadows shorten, and the great engine of the Tang Dynasty hums along, fueled in part by the clarity of a man who knows that every great work begins with a single patient circle in the dark. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, the ministry is a hive of activity, a sweltering collection of voices, and the persistent, dry scratching of hundreds of pens. The air is thick with the scent of old parchment and the sweat of overworked clerks, yet you move through this sensory density as if protected by an invisible barrier of cool mountain air. You are currently overseeing a complex redistribution of silk quotas for the western regions, a task that requires immense concentration and a delicate touch. In the year 740 CE, the Silk Road is the pulsing artery of the world, and every decision you make ripples across the deserts and through the mountain passes. Despite the weight of the task, you feel a strange sense of playfulness. You treat the ledgers not as obstacles, but as a vast unfolding scroll. You are composing the prosperity of the frontier with the same precision you used to compose your poem. During a brief midday respite, you step into a small shaded courtyard within the ministry walls. A single pomegranate tree grows there, its vibrant red blossoms standing out against the grey stone like drops of fresh cinnabar. You watch a beetle crawl along a leaf, its movements slow and deliberate. You realize that the pace of nature is the true pace of the scholar. The shush-shush of your nightly grind is merely a way to realign your internal clock with this natural tempo. In the frantic race for promotion and prestige that consumes so many of your peers, you have found a way to stand still. This stillness is not a lack of movement, but a perfect equilibrium, a state where you can act with maximum efficiency because you are no longer fighting against the current of your own anxiety. As you return to your desk, an imperial messenger arrives with a summons to a late afternoon briefing at the Xingqing Palace. The atmosphere at court is often treacherous, a place where a single misplaced word can end a career or a life. Yet, as you prepare your notes, you feel no trepidation. You look down at your hands and see that the faint ink stain under your thumbnail is still there, a tiny dark companion. It reminds you that the palace, for all its gold and jade, is just another room, and the emperor, for all his divinity, is another man who must eventually find his own path to peace. You are anchored by the basalt, you are guided by the soot. The power of the court is a fleeting shadow, the clarity of the ink is a permanent light. The briefing is long and filled with the usual posturing of the high officials. You listen more than you speak, your mind identifying the knots in the conversation, the places where ego and ambition are obscuring the truth of the matter. When it is finally your turn to provide an assessment of the Western trade, you speak with a quiet authority that commands the room. Your words are like your brushstrokes, economical, balanced, and rooted in reality. You do not seek to impress, only to clarify. You notice the emperor's gaze lingering on you for a moment, a look of curiosity and perhaps a hint of envy. He sees a man who is not striving, and in that lack of striving there is a profound, unshakable power. The session ends as the sun begins its long slide toward the horizon. You leave the palace grounds and begin the journey back to your estate. The transition is starting again, the shedding of the purple robes, the return to the bamboo and the stone. You feel the fatigue of the day beginning to settle in your shoulders, but it is a clean fatigue devoid of the bitterness of unfulfilled ambition. You look forward to the scent of the pine soot, the cool touch of the ceramic toad and the rhythmic sound of the stick against the stone. The world of 740 CE has had its turn. Now the night is calling you back to the source. You are the scholar, the bridge between the noise of the empire and the silence of the void, and the ink is waiting to flow once more. The carriage enters the familiar gates of your residence just as the twilight begins to deepen into a bruised, royal purple. The transition is almost tactile the moment the wheels move from the dusty public road onto the clean-swept gravel of your courtyard. The weight of the Xingqing Palace seems to lift from your neck. You are no longer an instrument of the state, but a man returning to his center. In the year 740 CE, a high official is rarely alone, yet you have cultivated a household that understands your need for the inner distance. They greet you with soft bows and lower eyes, providing a silent corridor through which you pass to reach your studio. You do not stop to eat a heavy meal or to discuss the news of the court. You want the flavor of the day's successes and stresses to remain just long enough to be ground away by the stone. Inside the studio, the air is still, holding the cool, dry scent of the morning's leftover ink. You shed your official robes, the heavy silk falling away like a discarded shell, and don a simple robe of unbleached hemp. The texture against your skin is a grounding reminder of the earth. You sit on the mat and look at the inkstone in the dying light. It is a humble object of basalt, yet in this moment it feels more significant than the jade throne you sat near just hours ago. The throne represents the peak of human hierarchy, but the stone represents the bedrock of human consciousness. You reach for the water dropper, and as the first clear beads hit the dry surface of the well, You feel the familiar magnetic pull of the ritual. The shush-shush begins, a low, rhythmic friction that sounds like the very first breath of the world. Tonight, the grinding feels different. There is a density to the ink, a resistance that seems to mirror the complexity of the imperial briefing you just attended. You do not fight the resistance, you lean into it. Each circular motion of your hand is a way of processing the voices of the ministers, the concerns of the frontier, and the silent gaze of the emperor. You are grinding those experiences into a fine, dark powder, mixing them with the water of your own intuition. The soot is no longer just carbon. It is the essence of the day's life being refined and purified. As the ink thickens, you feel a sense of profound integration. The official and the poet are not two different people. They are the two sides of the same brushstroke. One provides the structure, the other provides the spirit. The aroma of the pine soot begins to bloom, filling the small room and pushing back the last remnants of the day. It is a scent that demands presence. You cannot think of the past or the future when your nostrils are filled with the smell of an ancient forest being resurrected in a basin of water. You watch the ink develop its characteristic sheen, that liquid obsidian look that signals its readiness. Your hand moves with a fluidity that surprises even you. The fatigue in your muscles is replaced by a vibrating alertness, a chui that flows from the base of your spine, through your shoulder, and down into the very tip of the ink stick. You are no longer just preparing to write. You are becoming the ink itself. As the moon begins to climb over the bamboo grove, casting long barred shadows across your paper, you feel a moment of absolute clarity. You realize that the peace you seek is not a destination but a frequency, a vibration you can tune into at any moment, provided you have the patience to grind away the noise. You lift the stick, leaving a dark, perfect pool in the center of the stone. The silence of the studio is now complete, a rich, fertile void. You reach for the brush, your fingers finding their place with the ease of long habit. The night is yours, the empire is a distant dream. There is only the white paper, the black ink, and the eternal singular pulse of the living line. The brush hovers for a second above the paper, a bridge of rabbit hair suspended between the potential of the mind and the reality of the stroke. In the year 740 CE, the world is a tapestry of shifting borders and rising ambitions, but within the four walls of your studio, the only territory that matters is the white expanse of the scroll. You begin to write. Not a poem of grand themes this time, but a series of reflections on the nature of water. The ink flows with a remarkable consistency, a testament to the hour you spent at the stone. Each character is a study in fluid dynamics. You observe how the ink bleeds slightly into the fibers, creating a soft halo that mimics the way mist clings to the Yangtze. You are not merely recording thoughts, you are translating the physical sensations of the day, the cool silk of your sleeves, the hard marble of the palace floors, the heat of the afternoon sun, into a monochrome language of pressure and release. As the characters accumulate, you feel the shush-shush of the grinding still echoing in the rhythm of your movements. Your wrist is loose, acting as a pivot for the energy flowing from your core. You realize that the calligraphy is the final stage of the alchemy that began with the first drop of water on the basalt. The soot of the pine, once part of a living tree, then transformed by fire into ash and finally ground into liquid, is now achieving its highest form as an expression of human consciousness. This cycle of transformation is the secret pulse of the Tang. Everything is in a state of becoming. You feel a deep sense of humility as you realize you are just a temporary conduit for this process. The ink on the paper will remain long after your name is forgotten by the clerks of the ministry, and that thought brings you a profound, liberating peace. The night air grows colder, and you pull your hemp robe tighter around your shoulders. The flame of the lamp is steady, a small golden heart beating in the center of the room. You find yourself writing about the concept of wu wei, or effortless action. It is a concept you struggled with as a younger official, always trying to force the world to bend to your will. But tonight, as you watch the brush move across the paper, you finally understand it. The brush is not being forced, it is being allowed to go where the ink wants to lead it. You are not the master of the brush, but its partner. This realization ripples through you, changing the way you view your work at the ministry. Perhaps the solution to the silk quotas or the border tensions is not more force, but more flow, finding the natural path that requires the least amount of friction. You finish the scroll with a signature that is more a gesture than a name, a quick, spirited flourish that releases the last of the ink. You set the brush aside and lean back, watching the drying process. The blackness of the ink seems to deepen as it loses its moisture, becoming a part of the paper's very soul. You look at your hands, seeing the ghost of the ink stain under your nail, and you feel a sense of completion. The day's journey from the quiet garden to the gilded palace and back to the silent studio is finished. You have processed the world through the medium of the stone and the brush, and in doing so you have found a way to inhabit the year 740 CE without being consumed by it. As you stand to extinguish the lamp, you take one last look at the inkstone. It sits in the shadows, a dark, faithful companion that has once again absorbed the weight of your thoughts. You feel a wave of affection for the object, a recognition of its silent, steadfast service. You walk to your bed, the floorboards cool beneath your feet, and lie down as the first hint of pre-dawn grey begins to filter through the screens. The shush shush is a distant memory now, a lullaby that carries you toward a dreamless sleep. You are the poet, the official, and the grinder of ink. And for this brief moment in the long history of the empire, you are perfectly, beautifully still. The cycle of the sun and the moon in 740 CE continues its relentless wheel, yet each time you return to the mat, the world feels as fresh as a newly primed scroll. You wake before the servants this morning, drawn by a lingering thought that refused to be captured in the previous night's ink. The studio is draped in the ethereal blue-grey light of the hour before dawn, a time when the boundary between the physical and the spiritual is at its thinnest. You do not light the lamp, instead you move by instinct, your hands finding the ink stick and the stone in the dimness. There is a specific kind of magic in grinding ink in the dark, without the distraction of sight. The sound of the shush-shush becomes your entire universe. You feel the microscopic variations in the basalt's surface, the way the friction changes as the liquid transitions from water to wine-thick ink. It is a tactile meditation, a conversation between the bone of your hand and the bone of the earth. As the ink reaches its peak density, the first ray of sunlight strikes the garden outside, sending a golden needle through a gap in the shutters. It hits the well of the inkstone, and for a moment the dark liquid flashes with a hidden, iridescent fire. You realize that the ink is never truly black. It is a spectrum of every color that has ever existed, compressed into a single profound depth. This realization mirrors your life in the Tang capital. On the surface, you are a man of singular purpose, a servant of the throne. Beneath that exterior, you are a kaleidoscope of memories, desires, and dreams. The act of grinding the ink is the act of bringing those disparate elements into a unified whole. You are not just preparing to write, you are preparing to be. You dip a small fine-tipped brush into the pool and begin to write a series of short, vertical lines. They are not characters, but marks of existence, a tally of the breaths you have taken in this quiet space. In the year 740 CE, the empire is obsessed with the recording of history, with the preservation of names and dates, but these marks on your paper are for no one but the silence. They represent the unwritten parts of your day, the feeling of the wind through the bamboo, the taste of the morning mist, the way the inkstone feels against your palm. You are capturing the texture of time itself. You feel a sense of profound liberation in this purposeless act. By writing things that have no value to the state, you are reclaiming your soul from the machinery of the empire. As the house begins to stir and the distant sound of a bronze gong signals the start of the official day, you look at the paper. The marks are simple, yet they possess a raw, vibrating energy that your more formal calligraphy often lacks. They are the record of a man who has found the center of the circle. You carefully clean the stone, watching the black residue vanish under the clear water, leaving the basalt as pure as the day it was quarried. You realize that the stone is a teacher of forgiveness. It allows you to start over every day, no matter what mistakes you made the night before. This capacity for renewal is the true secret of the long-lived scholar. You are never finished, you are always beginning. You walk to the door of the studio and look out at the world of 740 CE, which is now fully bathed in the golden light of a spring morning. The carriage is waiting, the scrolls of the ministry are calling, and the complexities of the court are prepared to test your resolve. But you carry the shush-shush in your heart like a rhythmic shield. You are grounded in the soot, centered in the stone, and fluid as the ink. As you step out into the sunlight, you are not just a scholar official of the Tang, you are a living brushstroke, moving across the vast, beautiful, and ever-changing landscape of the world. The carriage ride back to the ministry on this final afternoon feels like the closing of a grand, circular brushstroke. In the year 740 CE, Chang'an is a city of 1,000,000 voices, yet as you look through the window, the clamour of the marketplace, the haggling of silk merchants, the neighing of horses, the distant clatter of construction, sounds like a fading echo of the stone's friction. You realize that you have spent your life trying to find the perfect balance between the soot of the world and the water of the spirit. The shush-shush has been your silent compass, guiding you through the treacherous currents of the Tang court. Now, as the sun begins to set behind the great terrace, painting the sky in a final defiant wash of vermilion and gold, you feel the weight of your official duties dissolving into the deepening shadows. When you enter your studio for the last time tonight, you do not reach for a fresh scroll. Instead, you look at the inkstone, its surface worn smooth by decades of your own persistence. It is no longer just a tool, it is a reliquary of your time on earth. You begin to grind with a slow, reverent rhythm, the sound more melodic than it has ever been. You aren't grinding for a poem, a letter, or a decree. You are grinding for the sake of the silence itself. The ink rises in the well, a dark, fathomless pool that seems to contain every sunset you have ever witnessed and every secret you have ever kept. You realize that the goal was never the masterpiece on the paper, but the refinement of the man holding the brush. The oil lamp flickers and dies, leaving you in the embrace of the moonlight. You dip your brush into the liquid obsidian and move toward the wall of your studio. You do not write a character. Instead, you draw a single, perfect circle, an enso that encompasses the entirety of your journey in 740 CE. It is a line born of fire, earth, and water, a testament to the friction that created your wisdom. As the ink dries, it becomes a part of the house, a part of the city, and a part of the air. You lay the brush down and step back. The shush-shush finally falls silent, replaced by a peace so profound it feels like the heartbeat of the universe. You walk to the window and look out at the sleeping capital. The lights of the palace are distant stars, and the rustle of the bamboo is a soft goodbye. You carry the scent of pine soot in your skin, and the stillness of the basalt in your soul. There is nothing left to record, for you have become the ink itself, fluid, enduring, and deep. In the heart of the High Tang, the scholar finally rests, leaving behind a world that is slightly more luminous because he spent his nights in the dark, turning grit into grace. The circle is complete. The stone is still. The story is written in the silence that follows.
Sleepy History Tales is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes.
The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history, but they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source.
While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation.
Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study.
By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.